Chapter 4733. Maman looked at the two people walking over. She wasn't as sharp as Yiqian, so she didn't realize that she was about to lose her life. She thought that Lena was done with her punishment, and before the two people walked over, she looked at Yiqian provocatively. Her lips moved slightly. "Wait for your death, you Chinese thing." Yiqian looked at her coldly and pursed his lips. Before the sky turned dark, before Wu Jinquan's people made a move, she had to protect herself. She couldn't let anything happen. The two fierce-looking Burmese men walked over and dragged Yiqian and Mom into a dungeon where no one could leave alive. Maman only realized that something was wrong when she was dragged to the entrance of the dungeon. She looked at Yiqian fiercely and was shocked. She thought that she didn't have to kneel anymore because they would let her go. Now that they were dragged to a place where she had never been before, Maman screamed. The dungeon was like a trap for hunters to kill their prey, and she was the prey waiting to be killed by the hunters. "Why did you send me here? I want to see Sister Lena. I want to see Sister Lena. I have something important to tell Sister Lena. Let me go, let me go. I have something important to tell Sister Lena. It's really important. Let me go, I beg you, let me go. I really have something important to tell Sister Lena. Let me go, let me go." Maman finally realized that she was in danger and slammed the door with all her might. It was as thick as a baby's arm and was welded shut with steel plates. The door clanged when she slammed it, and the pain in her palms was insignificant. The guards outside the dungeon didn't hear what she said at all. Even if they did, they wouldn't care. Everyone in the dungeon was dead. What else could they say? Maman screamed and slammed the door with a face full of despair. Yiqian saved her strength for tonight. She could finally vent all the anger that she had accumulated over the past few months. She had to conserve her strength well. She weighed the big lock hanging on the chain with both hands. It was still okay. She could just pry it open with some time. At least there was a way to escape. Having found a way to escape, Yiqian began to look around the dungeon. The dungeon was dark and damp. The air was so turbid that it was mixed with a putrid stench. Large patches of dark brown stains remained on the floor and walls. Yiqian used his fingernails to dig out a piece of the wall and slowly brought it to his nose to smell it. His expression gradually froze. Human blood. She raised her eyes slightly, and with the help of the sunlight, she carefully looked around the entire prison. She saw that there were large patches of dark brown all around, and even the ceiling of the prison had some. This place was not a prison, but a hell on earth. She stepped on the dried and discolored human blood. Everywhere she looked, there was still human blood. She was surrounded by the blood of human lives. Lena must be eliminated. Yiqian's dark eyes were bloodshot as he slowly raised his hand to touch the dark brown blood stains on the uneven wall. The killing intent in his heart had reached its peak. The sound of footsteps came from behind him, accompanied by a strong gust of wind. Yiqian, with bloodshot eyes, turned sideways and nimbly avoided Maman's attack. "It's you, it's all your fault. It's all your fault. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you." If she had held the fruit plate steadily, it would not have been broken, and Sister Lena would not have been locked up in a hunting dungeon. "It's all her fault. It's all her fault." The shrieking Maman's hair was disheveled, and she madly pounced on Yiqian again. "That's right. As long as I kill her, Sister Lena will definitely forgive me. She will definitely let me go. That's right, that's right, that's right. Kill her, kill her." Maman, whose heart was already filled with demons, stared at Yiqian's neck until her eyes turned red. Chapter 4734. Maman grew up in the mountains, and her personality was wild. The hunters in the mountains had taught her from a young age that she had to either let the prey go or kill them. This was the way of survival for the Kachin people. She was used to the law of the jungle, and after being trained by Lena, Maman's desire to kill was completely ignited. She had learned from Lena that if she wanted to live, she had to be ruthless. Anyone who was an obstacle to her survival must be eliminated. "You're too much of an eyesore, too much of an eyesore. Without you, Sister Lena would definitely let me go. I'm the most obedient person by Sister Lena's side. You have to die, you have to die. What's the use of keeping useless things? I'm going to help Sister Lena kill you. I'm going to kill you." The crazy Maman grabbed a handful of ash from the ground and sprinkled it in Yi Qian's eyes. While Yi Qian was waving his hand, she pounced forward again. Yi Qian was now the prey she had to kill. She had to kill her. She had to kill her. At this moment, there was only one thought in Maman's mind. Kill. This was not the first time she had killed someone. Her hands were already stained with blood, and she was not afraid to kill again. Maman, you're a very smart girl. Seeing that we're both catching people, I'll let you live well and live the life you want. Do you see? The two disobedient and useless girls in front. Help Sister Lena kill them. After you kill them, you'll be mine. In the future, you'll help Sister Lena monitor the other two girls. If they do anything, you have to tell Sister Lena. Whatever they say or do, you have to be obedient and tell me honestly. Maman, Sister Lena thinks so highly of you. You won't disappoint me, right? You should be familiar with this knife. It was a catch-and knife that was completely black. Only the blade was polished to a cold gleam. How could she not be familiar with it? Every family in the village had a catch-and knife. Children had to learn how to hold a knife from a young age, and only when they grew up could they use it. If she hadn't secretly left the village because she yearned for city life and wanted to live a life where she could eat well, wear well, and not have to worry about money every day, she would still be living a poor life in the village. This saber belongs to us catch-and clansmen. It's a saber to save ourselves. Now, I'll give it to you. You should help Sister Lena deal with these two useless things. Kill them, kill them. From now on, you'll be my big sister Lena subordinate. Do you want to be my subordinate? My subordinates will get a lot of money, and they will use the money to live a good life. Why did you leave the stockade? Isn't it because you want to live a better life? I'm giving you one chance now, only one chance. If you missed it, it might be someone else's turn to kill you next time. Do you want to live? Do you want to live well? Then kill them, kill them. Kill them, kill them. She had once regretted leaving her village because she was hungry. Now, she no longer regretted it. She no longer regretted it. Why should she regret it? Lena had said that as long as she killed them, she would be able to live the life she wanted. Just kill them. Just like a few months ago, she closed her eyes and stabbed the catch-and knife, then pulled it out, then stabbed it in again, and pulled it out again. She didn't stop and poured all her strength into catch-and knife. Chapter 47:35. Blood sprayed on her face. It was very, very hot. It was so hot that her hands trembled when she raised the knife. However, they were not dead yet. They were still screaming. She could not let them scream. She could not let them live. If they lived, she would be the one to die. She wanted to live. She wanted to live well. She wanted to live well like Sister Lena. Maman, who had fallen into madness, was confused. Lena's voice rang in her ears. Every word was imprinted in her mind. Maman, who had been completely brainwashed, only knew that she had to kill. Only by killing could she survive. This was the survival code that Lena had taught her. Kill you. I'm going to kill you. Don't dodge. Don't dodge. Stand still. Stand still. Just like the two of them. Stand still. Kill you. Ah! I'm going to kill you. Maman, whose eyes were red, pounced on Yi Qian again and again. Her sharp cries made Yi Qian's eyes turn colder and colder. Stand still like the two of them, the first two girls to disappear. Yi Qian, who had dodged and did not fight back, made his move. He grabbed Maman's wrist with one hand and twisted it. He kicked out with his right leg and knocked the crazy Maman to the ground. Bang! Maman fell hard to the ground, raising a cloud of dust around her. Ah, Maman screamed. Her hands were pressed down by one knee. Yi Qian, who was kneeling on her back, had one hand on her back. Her arms were twisted into a U shape. Even the slightest struggle would cause her to feel extreme pain. The back of her neck was also grabbed by Yi Qian, pressing the side of her face against the rough and uneven ground. Her entire face was pressed into the withered grass on the ground that had been contaminated by human blood to the point that it was emitting a rotten smell and could no longer be distinguished from its color. This fall brought Maman back to her senses. When she came back to her senses, Maman's voice became even sharper. Let go of me, B*TCH. Let go. MMM. MMM. A handful of rotten grass was stuffed into Mammon's mouth, blocking all her words back into her throat. Yi Qian exerted a lot of strength and stuffed the grass deep into her throat. Mammon was choked on the spot, and her eyes rolled back. Were you the one who killed the first two missing girls? Did you kill them? Yi Qian gripped the back of Ma Min's neck with one hand like an iron clamp. The bloodthirst in her eyes was even thicker than Ma Min's, and it was even more frightening. Ma Min, who was stuffed with grass until her eyes rolled back, struggled and tried to use her tongue to push the disgusting thing out of her mouth. She did not answer Yi Qian's question even if she heard it. Did you kill him? Did you? Yi Qian was no longer holding her neck tightly. Instead, he used his elbow to lock Ma Min's throat. He used the strength of his arm to lift Ma Min's head up, forcing Ma Min's entire neck to tilt back. The back of her head was almost touching the back of her neck. MMM. Let go of me, asterisk tch. Were you the one who killed the two of them? Were you the one who killed the younger sister that the older sister was looking for? Were you the one who stole the pancakes from you? Were you the one who killed them? Ma Min, whose neck was tilted back, had difficulty breathing. It was even more impossible for her to answer Yi Qian. Yi Qian removed the grass that was stuffed into her mouth. Ma Min, who finally had a chance to breathe, coughed painfully. She coughed until tears came out of the corners of her eyes. You killed the two of them. Why did you kill them? Chapter 4736. Ma Min's eyes instantly widened. She remembered. It wasn't just one person speaking Chinese. There was another man speaking Chinese as well. The man who had scared her until she fainted was also speaking Chinese. Come! Before the high-pitched voice could come out of her throat, Yi Jian used her sharp nails to pierce Ma Min's upper lip. A sharp pain came, and Ma Min swallowed the scream that was about to burst out of her throat. You killed them. Why? They were the same as you. Why did you kill them? Yi Qian questioned her harshly. She thought that Lena had taken care of the missing girls, but who knew? Who knew that they were actually killed by Ma Min? They were actually killed by Ma Min. Ugh, let go of me, traitor. You, traitor. Ma Min, whose neck was tilted back so that her breathing was smoother, had a murderous look in her eyes. She wanted to glare at Yi Qian, but Yi Qian was behind her, so she couldn't glare at her. All her struggles were in vain. She became a prey that couldn't move or resist. She could only be accepted. The word traitor clearly entered Yi Qian's ears. The murderous look in Yi Qian's eyes intensified. Ma Min had heard the conversation between her and the undercover narcotics police officer surnamed Liu. She should have heard it vaguely, but she didn't hear it clearly. Another reason to kill her was added to the list. You killed them. Did you ever think that you would be killed by others one day? Traitor? I've never betrayed anyone. How can I be a traitor? She exerted more force with her elbow, and Mammon's limbs struggled even more. Panic began to appear in her fierce eyes. Let go. Li, nah. After killing the two of them, you should have thought that you would be killed one day. Ma Min, you chose a path of no return. At that time, in order to survive, you used all kinds of methods to get rid of the two of us first. From the beginning, you chose to kill all of us. I don't care what Lena said to you at that time to let you kill them. You shouldn't have what? Yi Qian did not continue speaking. His cold eyes were already filled with tears. Was Ma Min wrong? She was wrong, but she wasn't wrong either. What was wrong with her wanting to live? For the sake of her own survival, she could only follow Lena's instructions and pick up the butcher's knife to kill. 2 innocent lives ended in her hands. Was it Ma Min's fault? No. The fault lies with the sinful Lena. Ma Min, you're walking the same path of crime as Lena. You're doing anything to survive. You thought you could live a good life. You're wrong, Ma Min. You're walking the same path as Lena. I've thought about taking you away. I've thought about sending you home. I've thought about everything. Tears slowly flowed from her eyes. She could clearly feel a life slowly slipping away under her hands. Ma Min's face was covered with shock. She struggled until her arms were dislocated. She struggled until the green veins on her neck twisted. Her throat was full of despair. She couldn't live on. She couldn't live on. Trade to you. The curses gradually disappeared. The light in her eyes dimmed. Even her limbs stopped struggling. With a ferocious and unwilling expression, Maman could no longer see the sun rise tomorrow. Chapter 47:37. Yiqian let go of her elbow and looked at Mammon, who was unwilling to die. She wiped the tears from her eyes and gently closed them. When she opened them again, her gaze was cold and calm. She got up and dragged the dead Mammon to a corner of the dungeon, pretending to be asleep. She then sat beside her, hugging her knees and waiting for the sky to turn dark. 8 o'clock was the time for Wu Jinquan's operation. Once the time was up, the fight outside would begin. She would take the opportunity to leave the dungeon with the undercover drug police. The only thing she could do now was to wait. Lena, who had finally gotten Wu Jinquan drunk, rushed back to the room and quickly dialed the number of General Minlai's adjutant. She needed to know what was going on outside. The more anxious she was, the harder it was to get through. The more it was like this, the more ominous Lena felt. Something must have happened outside. Lena stopped dialing and shouted, "Guards!" The bodyguards outside pushed the door open and entered. "Inform everyone to guard the village strictly. If you find any strangers entering or leaving the village, take care of them no matter who they are. Transfer all the completed drugs out of the factory. Leave only the drugs that Brother Cohen needs to transport away tonight. All the sentries are to move out and strengthen the security of the village. Everyone is to carry guns." Lena had a very strong intuition. Her intuition was telling her that the situation outside was not good. She had to act as soon as possible and could not wait in the village. After giving out all the orders, Lena's beautiful face twisted into a ferocious expression. Should she just abandon the village and leave? No, this was her life's work. She could not just leave like this. If she did not leave, would she be in danger? Not for the time being. Wu Jinquan was still there. If he dared to come up today, it meant that there was no danger for the time being. If there was danger, he would not come up even if he had 100 guts. Even if she really had to abandon the village and leave, she had to leave with the cash that Wu Jinquan gave her. If she did not leave tonight, at the latest tomorrow night, her nails that were as red as blood dug deep into her palms. Lena let someone in again. This time, she arranged to leave. Outside, the sun gradually moved to the west. The fiery red clouds flowed to the end of the horizon. The setting sun was blood red. The wind was still and the trees were still. A day had finally passed, and the curtain of night fell. In a military base of the Shan state in Myanmar, a few jeeps with bright headlights cut through the darkness in the mountains, startling a few hares that were foraging for food at night and quickly scurrying into the bushes. The wheels rolled over the mountain road, leaving deep teeth marks. Inside the car, there was a Burmese high-ranking general with a cold face and dark skin. The car was shaking, and the driver and guard were sitting quietly. No one dared to speak. The phone's ringtone broke the dead silence in the car. The sudden ringtone made the accompanying people panic. They looked at the adjutant, who took out his phone. "General, the Shan State Police are calling." The adjutant did not hand over the phone immediately. Instead, he asked first. General Minlai glanced at the lit screen and reached out for the phone with a murderous look in his eyes. "Hello, I'm Minlai." In just a few seconds, General Minlai's murderous look intensified. Even the adjutant swallowed slightly, held his breath, and sat up straight. In the past half a month, General Minlai had not smiled even once. He even personally executed a few high-ranking military officials who did not deserve to die for their petty actions. It was obvious how angry the general was. Chapter 47:38. Now that the Shan State Police had called again, the deputy lowered his eyes slightly, and his fingers on his knees unconsciously tapped a few times. He was afraid that something bad was about to happen. The general's face was as dark as the night, so dark that even the deputy didn't dare to look at it directly. "Since you've chosen to work with me, the difficulties are of course my difficulties. Don't worry, there won't be any problems on my side. You just need to guard the police and don't let those useless people target me. Don't worry about the Chinese side. They can't do anything to me. What they do is their own business, and it has nothing to do with us. Remember, you and I just need to clean up our private parts. Whatever needs to be cleaned up will be cleaned up, and don't leave any traces behind. You and I will be fine. As for that lead, I've already decided to give up. If there's any problem, blame it on her alone. I've already sent someone to take care of her. If it can be done smoothly, then there's no need for you to appear. If it can't be done smoothly, it's the police's job to catch criminals in Myanmar. You have full authority, and there's no need to ask me. Okay, I believe you can handle it. Well, there'll be a cash transfer to your old account tomorrow. Okay, sure, happy working with you. General Min Lai was expressionless throughout the entire conversation. After the call ended, he directly threw the phone to the deputy. Lena is cunning. Inform the people sent to take care of her. Don't leave any future problems for me. Yes, General. The deputy nodded. The sudden action of the Chinese side was equivalent to pulling Lena out of the water. If she wasn't taken care of soon, the Chinese anti-drug police would definitely trace it back to General Min Lai. In order to prevent future problems, Lena had to be taken care of. Although she was still useful, compared to the general's own safety, no matter how useful she was, she had to be abandoned. The car continued to drive on the mountain road, and the trees on both sides flashed past the window. The car returned to silence again. Lena, who was ready to welcome a new client, didn't expect that General Min Lai had already abandoned her. She also didn't know that the so-called new client wasn't a client at all, but an assassin hired by Wu Jinkuan. Wu Jinkuan didn't dare to underestimate Lena, and only by hiring her with a large sum of money could he be confident. It was 10 minutes to 8 o'clock in the evening. The poisonous goods that needed to be delivered to Wu Jinkuan were all packed and waiting to be loaded into the car to leave. Outside the mountain stronghold, a shadow swayed. His footsteps were light as he swept into the forest like a ghost. Someone whistled as he unbuckled his belt and entered the forest to relieve himself. Before he could finish, a black shadow appeared beside him, covered his mouth and nose, and slit his throat with a long knife. The technique was clean and neat, and it was finished in an instant. Wu Jinkuan looked at the time. There were still 5 minutes before 8 o'clock. He took a deep look at the bodyguard beside him and got a subtle nod. Wu Jinkuan's face, which was covered with countless fine scars, revealed a strange smile. He patted the box of poisonous goods and smiled, revealing his yellow teeth. Brother Kuan, tonight you will personally take this batch of goods out. The next batch. Before Lena could finish her sentence, a sharp whistle came from the stockade. Before Wu Jinkuan could even react, Lena quickly hid behind the car and took out her pistol. Wu Jinkuan reacted and hid behind the car. What's going on? It's not time yet. Brother Kuan, it's not our people. The bodyguard gripped his pistol tightly and replied in a low voice. Another wave of people is coming. Gunshots rang out from all around the mountain stronghold. Lena's face was gloomy as she closed her eyes. It's coming. She had become the general's abandoned pawn. Chapter 4739. General Min Lai was one of the most powerful warlords in Myanmar. Lena was not the only capable person under him. Chin Maung Sain, who was once beheaded by the Snowfield Brigade, was also one of General Min Lai's men. The reason Lena was able to serve General Min Lai was because of Chin Maung Sain. As one of Chin Maung Sain's mistresses, Lena had been ambitious from the very beginning. She first met Chin Maung Sain on the pretext of looking for a business partner, then became his mistress. Then, through Chin Maung Sain, she met General Min Lai. It only took her less than 3 years to return to the stockade and lead the entire village to sell drugs. This was also why General Min Lai's income from the rear was not completely cut off when a Snowfield Brigade blew up Chin Maung Sain's warehouse that stored a large amount of drugs. This was because in addition to Chin Maung Sain and Lena, there were other drug factories behind him. The drug factories that he personally supervised were the largest source of military funding for General Min Lai's troops. The mass-produced drugs were sold all over the world through drug dealers like Lena and Chin Maung Sain. General Minlai was able to give up so easily because he was never worried that no one would sell drugs to him. On the contrary, there were plenty of drug dealers who wanted to sell drugs through the convenient door he opened. General Minlai did not hesitate to abandon Lena. When he realized that Lena was about to be exposed, he immediately sent people to cut her off. Few people could compare to his ruthlessness. Wu Jinquan, who was holding the pistol tightly, listened to the continuous gunshots around him. He leaned against the wheel and laughed out loud. Lena, with your intelligence, you should know who wants to kill you, right? Ha ha, ha. Back then, Wu Jinquan, was the ruler of Shan State. Minlai was just a small pawn. In the end, he used my power to bite me. Look at the dog you serve. He has done this many times. Ha ha ha. Lena, do you think you can leave here alive today? Wu Jinquan knew that Lena was hiding on the other side. They were only one carriage apart. She would definitely be able to hear what he said clearly. But so what if he heard it clearly? From the very beginning, Lena knew how frightened General Minlai, whom she was loyal to, was. Her former lover, Qin Mong Sane, was also a figure in the Golden Triangle. She didn't know how much military funds he collected for the general, but what happened to him in the end? Even the person who killed him was a mystery. For the sake of their friendship in the past, she still secretly investigated. Just as she made her move, she received a phone call from the general. If she dared to investigate, he would immediately send someone to deal with her. When she heard the news in the morning, she knew that things were not going well. So she took the opportunity to get Wu Jinquan drunk to arrange a way out. Now, a large amount of cash was in the car that she was about to leave. She had secretly made all the necessary arrangements in the village, including the way to escape from General Minlai, since she had decided to leave. So what if she became an abandoned pawn? On the other side of the carriage, Lena revealed a cold smile. It seems that Brother Kuan has other plans today. I'm sorry, Brother Kuan, but I can't play with Brother Kuan anymore. After that, he gave the bodyguard beside him a look, and the bodyguard shot to suppress them while he quickly retreated. Wu Jinquan, whose body was still reeking of alcohol, had a drastic change in expression. His bean-sized eyes shone with a fierce light as he shouted at the people around him, "Block her! Damn it! That stupid woman actually arranged a way out. She must have arranged it while he was drunk. Otherwise, she wouldn't have had the time to do it. Stupid woman. She was indeed chosen by that dog Minlai." Wu Jinquan, whose face was full of hostility, spat fiercely and took the lead to rush out. Chapter 4740. Inform the people in the dungeon to clean them up. Make sure they're dead before leaving. Lena, who was being protected by her subordinates, suddenly remembered that there were still 2 people left in the dungeon. She immediately gave the order to prevent them from escaping. The people in the dungeon didn't wait for Lena's order. They immediately rushed into the dungeon and fired at the corner where they could see people. As for whether they hit the target or not, they had to open the door to confirm. Open the lock. The Burmese man maintained his shooting posture. The moment the iron door opened, he fired again. The dungeon was filled with a burning smell. It was the smell of burning when the bullets were shot into the body of a human. The dungeon was extremely dark at night. The Burmese man calmed down when he smelled the smell. He put down his rifle and walked towards a corner. There were 2 people in total. There was another person guarding outside the dungeon. In the corner of the iron door, Yi Jian tucked the long black hair clipped back into her hair. She calmly watched the 2 of them facing the corner, which was a short distance away from the iron door. She, who was hiding in the corner, rushed out of the iron door like an arrow leaving the bow with a cold and sharp intent. The Burmese man who was guarding outside noticed something was wrong. His face was full of shock, and he only had time to open his mouth and shout. The black figure rushed in front of him and grabbed the loaded rifle in his hand before he had time to react. Yi Jian, who had seized the initiative, didn't have time to grab the gun. So, he decided to use the most powerful method. Before the other party could react, he directly used the rifle in the other party's hand to shoot at the 2 shadows inside. The 2 people inside turned around. They knew they had discovered something, but they didn't expect to be greeted by continuous bullets. The Burmese man whose gun was grabbed by Yi Qian immediately tried to point the muzzle upward. However, Yi Qian was faster. She grabbed the gun and fired directly. It wasn't a precise shot, but a sweep. Bang, 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 bang. The continuous bullets hit the people inside and made it even harder for them to escape. The sweeping bullets instantly pierced through their bodies. The Burmese man who had his rifle stolen screamed in pain. Yi Qian's eyes were cold. She used all her strength to hold on to the rifle. She didn't let go even when the other party's elbow hit her chest repeatedly. Her ribs hurt so much that she felt like they were broken. Seek victory in danger and find the best way to fight in the most dangerous situation. This was the way of fighting that Xia Jinyuan taught Yi Qian. Yi Qian, who was alone and didn't have a weapon with her, applied what she learned on the battlefield. She even had a weapon to escape. The two people in the dungeon fell down. The Burmese man's screams were even louder. Bang, 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 bang. Yi Jian kept shooting until the barrel began to turn red. The bullets were shot to the ground, then to the left and right, and then to the top. Large chunks of the wall fell down, and the not-so-small dungeon was filled with gunshots. Click! The sound of an empty cartridge rang out. Yi Qian, whose chest was hit, finally stopped. The Burmese man, who was furious, smashed the gun at Yi Qian with a ferocious look. The gunshots outside were chaotic. Yi Qian took care of the Burmese man, who was trying to stop her from leaving. She formed a V shape with her elbow and clamped the man's neck. She clenched her teeth and twisted her elbow. There was a cracking sound from the neck. The Burmese man, whose face was red from struggling, suddenly dropped to his sides. He was no longer breathing. Chapter 47-41. Yi Qian had always been hard-hearted when it came to targets that needed to be taken care of. She never pretended to be kind to her enemies. The first time she went overseas to fight, she had hesitated when facing a young Pakistani boy. It was Xia Jinyuan's reminder that prevented her from making a big mistake. Being merciful on the battlefield would only bring disaster to oneself in the end. She had already learned the cruelty of war. No matter how young the opponent was, as long as he was in danger, she would never be merciful because of his age. She loosened her arm and felt a sharp pain in her muscles. It was like being pricked by needles, followed by spasms that made her fingers tremble. It was a temporary imbalance caused by excessive tension in her muscles. Yi Qian massaged her rock-hard right arm until she felt a tingling sensation. Her fingertips felt the warmth of her blood vessels. Only then did Yi Qian stand up and walk into the dungeon. She needed to have a weapon in hand and use it. In the dungeon, the two Burmese men who had been shot didn't die immediately. Yi Qian could still hear their weak moans when she went in. He picked up one of the rifles and unloaded the magazine of the other rifle. He then touched the waist of the two men and pulled out a sharp scimitar from one of the men's waist. This was a scimitar that the men in the stockade often used for cutting bamboo tips and self-defense. The machete was only 2 fingers long and shaped like a crescent moon. It looked a bit like a sickle used to cut rice, but it was several times sharper. Yi Qian attached the bow to her waist and aimed at the two men who were still breathing. She shot each of them in the heart before turning around and walking out of the dungeon. She needed to find the undercover narcotics police officer surnamed Liu. Gunshots were heard everywhere in the village. They were from General Min Lai's men, Wu Jinquan's men who had secretly infiltrated the village, and Lina's own men. The sudden shooting of General Min Lai's men didn't cause any harm to Lina. On the contrary, it made it easier for Lina to escape. Originally, Wu Jinquan only needed to deal with Lina. But now, the one-on-one situation had become one-on-two. Wu Jinquan was completely suppressed by the firepower of General Min Lai's men 3 times in a row. Wu Jinquan was so angry that his teeth chattered. He didn't think that he would be the one behind Lina's successful escape. Lina, who had long made preparations to escape, had a smooth journey with a large amount of cash. Hearing the heavy gunshots behind her, Lina, who had climbed into the car, looked out of the window and sneered. "Drive!" Closing the tinted window, Lina's voice disappeared from her lips. In the flickering light of the fire, one could faintly see that the sneer on her face had turned into a smug one. She was not as stupid as Qin Mong Sane, who thought that he could sit back and relax, just because he had the support of a general. General Minlai was vicious and merciless. He could even scheme against his sworn brother, Wu Jinquan. She knew that she had to be careful when working for such a scheming and ruthless general. She also knew that once things went wrong, it would be best to leave in time. He absolutely could not make the same mistake as Qin Mong Sane. He believed that if something really happened, the general would let him off on account of their friendship. The car started, and a few strong beams of light lit up in the layers of mountain foliage. The motor ran at high speed, and the car sped out of the village like an arrow. The canopy swayed in the night, and the sound of gunshots was chaotic. No matter who was in front of her, Yi Qian would shoot as soon as she saw them. To her, they were all criminals who must be killed. There was no difference. Chapter 47-42. Get in the car, get in the car. Don't let her get away. F***CK. Get in the car and chase after her. A rough and violent voice came from the gunshots. Yi Qian's heart sank. This was Wu Jinquan's voice. This she he was referring to was most likely Lina. Lina had escaped in a car. Yi Qian's eyes turned sharp. He quickly rushed out with his rifle in hand and ran towards the southwest of the village. That was where the vehicles were parked. Brother Kuan, our car broke down. Boom! An explosion that was even louder than a thunderclap rang out. The entire mountain stronghold shook because of the explosion. The southwest direction of the parked vehicles was instantly engulfed in flames. A huge fireball rose into the air, and a heat wave spread out in all directions. Yi Qian, who was running, saw the mushroom cloud in front of him and stopped abruptly. He quickly crawled and covered his head. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. All sorts of debris fell from the sky like rain. The fire began to engulf the surroundings. Yi Qian, who was holding on tightly, heard countless curses and screams. The gunshots also stopped temporarily because of the sudden explosion. Yi Qian shook his head to shake off the debris on his head. He supported himself with one hand on the ground and leaped up. He looked around. It was chaos everywhere. He wasn't sure if he could immediately find the undercover narcotics officer with the surname Liu. Lina had already escaped and blown up all the parked vehicles. She had a plan to escape. Thinking of this, Yi Qian picked up his rifle and ran like a cheetah out to hunt at night. He ran wildly in the direction of the car. She couldn't chase after the car, so she could only take a shortcut. The few months in the village were enough for her to memorize the surrounding terrain. Yi Qian knew very well that taking a shortcut would allow her to catch up to Lina faster and faster. Yi Qian turned and ran outside. A gang member stepped on the flames and quickly approached the dungeon. As he neared the dungeon, the gang member's footsteps suddenly changed, and he almost rushed in. He smelled a strong scent of blood in the dungeon. Female, soldier, Yi Qian. Black Shadow's face changed dramatically as he rushed into the dark dungeon. He touched the mini flashlight on his waist and scanned the area. The first thing he saw was a Burmese man with a broken neck lying on the ground outside. Black Shadow breathed a sigh of relief and calmed down a little. After checking the situation in the dungeon, the Black Shadow quickly retreated. The female soldier Yi Qian had already left the dungeon, but she did not come looking for him. The entire village was in chaos. When the villagers who had been cut off by Lina heard the explosion, they were as cunning as rabbits. They all ran into the forest. These people knew in advance that there would be a fierce battle tonight. With the explosion in the southwest as the signal, everyone immediately ran into the forest to escape. At this point, Wu Jinquan knew that he had been set up. It didn't matter if the car they drove up broke down. There were still people guarding outside the stockade. That damn woman was really smart. She was able to escape even after being surrounded like this. Tell the people below to keep watch. If they see a car coming out, shoot. Licking the corner of his mouth, Wu Jinquan said coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, the expression on his scarred face twisted again. Damn it, I'm going to clean up that bastard Minlai's house tonight. Wu Jinquan was so angry that he raised his pistol and fired randomly at the ground. Kill everyone. Leave no one alive. Chop off their heads and throw them into the river. The person Wu Jinquin hated the most in Burma was General Min Lai. Tonight, the person he wanted to get rid of was also the person General Min Lai wanted to get rid of. How could he not hate him? Chapter 47-43. It was not a good feeling to work for someone else. Lu! Lu! Wu Jinquin yelled. He yelled 3 times, but no one answered. His ruthless expression became even worse. Lu was just beside him a moment ago, but after the explosion, he disappeared. Lu was the undercover agent that the anti-narcotics police in Cherry City had been keeping by Wu Jinquin's side for 3 years. He had climbed up from the bottom to reach Wu Jinquin's side. This time, not only did he need to help Yi Qian leave, but he also needed to secretly deal with Wu Jinquin and take the opportunity to escape. He did not know that Wu Jinquin was looking for him when he left the dungeon. He did not have much time to look for him. He retreated and killed 2 guys who he did not know who they were. At the same time, a text message was sent to Captain Deng's cell phone. After reading the message, Captain Deng's cell phone was almost destroyed by the force of his hand. It's already done over there. Captain Deng put down his phone and rubbed his dry eyes. It's a cross-border operation. There are only 2 brothers. Whether they can come back depends on tonight. In the core area of the Golden Triangle, even the Chinese, who had the strongest anti-narcotics force, did not dare to test the waters. They only used informants and undercover operations to grasp the general direction. Even so, it was difficult to grasp the general direction. The big drug lords who had been active in the Golden Triangle for many years were not ordinary. They had sacrificed several of their informants and spies. Even if there were spies and informants in the deeper areas, they did not dare to let them stay there for too long. They were afraid of assimilation, and they were also afraid of danger. Captain Deng, the undercover agent from the anti-narcotics police, had the intention of letting him take the opportunity to return home. This time, the timing was perfect. Captain Deng immediately ordered him to return home. Now, the best opportunity to return home had come. Captain Deng looked calm on the surface, but deep down, he was burning with anxiety. He was worried that he could not return home, but he was still worried that he could return home. The anti-narcotics police, who had been waiting in the office, surrounded Captain Deng. Their eyes fell on the phone on the desk. Everyone's face was cold, and their eyes were cold. In addition to the Golden Triangle, the Chinese had secretly sent special forces to clean up some drug factories. Only the Golden Triangle was a restricted area. The military and police would not send special forces there. Now that 2 of their brothers needed to come out of the restricted area, they could accept some injuries. General Min Lai sent someone to assassinate the second target, but the second target noticed it in advance and arranged an escape route. Wu Jinquin didn't know about it immediately. Currently, Lu Ning and Yi Qian have lost contact. I'm guessing that Yi Qian is probably pursuing Lena alone. It's hard to say if she and Lu Ning will meet. It's not a good thing for the 2 of them to separate, and we can only wait for Lu Ning to send news again. Yi Qian's graduation ceremony is in a week. After Captain Deng finished speaking, the air in the office froze. Lu Ning still had a cell phone on him, so he could contact the captain at any time, but Yi Qian didn't have any communication devices on him. If something happened, no one would know immediately. A week later, it was still her graduation ceremony. The military called to inform her that she had been awarded the title of Outstanding Student of the National University of Science and Technology. On the day of the graduation ceremony, she was going to give a speech on stage. The corners of the drug enforcement officer's mouths were pressed into a straight line. If he couldn't even attend the graduation ceremony of a 4-year military academy, it would be a lifelong regret. Captain, I suggest that after tonight, we strengthen patrols in the depths of our province's borders and send out helicopters to patrol. As an outstanding student, Yi Qian will definitely know how to send us useful signals. Chapter 47-44. Once our helicopter patrol colleagues see a signal on the ground, we can immediately pick her up and rush to the National University of Science and Technology to attend the graduation ceremony. Yi Qian was still fighting alone in the depths of Myanmar. Captain Deng and the others had already arranged for several helicopters to begin air patrols along the border between Myanmar and Yin province. She could faintly hear the sound of car motors in front of her, and she could also see beams of bright light rising and falling from the turns of the mountain road. Just a little faster, and she would be able to catch up. Just a little faster, and she would be able to catch up. Yi Jian's hand gripped the rough bark, and with a gentle turn, she slid down the mountain for a while. Yi Jian, who had been running in the mountain the whole time, had countless bloody wounds on her face, body, and legs from the thorny vines. She also didn't know how many times she had been stung by the insects in the mountain. Even the burning pain all over her body didn't make her stop chasing. Almost there, almost there. As long as she ran in front, she would be able to catch up with the vehicles, even if she could only catch up with the last vehicle. She jumped down from a protruding rock, hugged a tree that grew under the rock, and slid all the way down. She was only a slender body, but she burst out with unimaginable strength. She fought bravely and fearlessly for the sake of annihilating evil. What qualities should a modern soldier have? A brave and fearless spirit was definitely the most important, and Yi Qian could be seen in the epitome of a modern soldier. She was fearless, and she would go straight for the beliefs in her heart. She never regretted, and she never looked back. Once she embarked on this road, she would bid farewell to the prosperity and prosperity. She would bid farewell to singing and dancing. She would only be accompanied by sweat and blood, and she would have no regrets. Yi Qian, who was running too fast, crashed into a fir tree. She bit her lower lip tightly. She saw brighter lights and heard the sound of approaching motors. She didn't even wipe the blood from her forehead before she rushed out again. In the car, Lena received a call from General Minlai. On the phone, General Minlai's voice was cold and cruel. Lena, who was holding the phone tightly, felt her heart tremble, but the ruthlessness on her face didn't diminish at all. General, I brought you countless military funds, but in exchange, you abandoned me even more. If I don't leave, am I really going to wait to be killed? No, I'm not that idiot Chimong's saying. I can work for your troops, but I'll only work for your troops if I want to protect my own life. Now that you don't need me anymore, I can only leave with regret. General, you don't have to persuade me anymore. In my eyes, your persuasion is nothing more than a soft knife that kills without shedding blood. I nodded my head tonight, but tomorrow I'll be taking my own head. The car sped past, its headlights sweeping across the pitch-black night ahead as it rushed towards the Thai border. Yi Qian finally saw the car. She wiped the sweat and blood off her face and looked at the bottomless cliff. She took a long, deep breath of the fresh mountain air. If this jump was successful, she would be able to jump onto the roof of a speeding car. If there was a mistake, it would be equivalent to suicide. She would jump directly into the depths of the cliff, and it was very likely that not even her bones would be left. She would never allow herself to make any mistakes. Yi Qian clenched his fists as the first car sped past. Just as the second car sped past, Yi Qian leaped down from the branches of the cliff. Bang! The sound of a heavy object falling could be heard by the people in the two cars in front. When the people in the smashed cars looked up, they could clearly see that the roof of the car had caved in. Chapter 47-45. The sunken roof shocked everyone in the car, and their hair stood on end. Was there an ambush? This was a winding mountain road that was hidden among the cliffs and cliffs. The road wasn't wide enough for a jeep to pass through. Even a normal truck couldn't pass through. One side of the road was facing the mountain, and the other side was facing the cliff. The drivers were all experienced drivers who were familiar with the road, and their driving skills were quite good. That was why they were able to drive steadily on the cliff-facing mountain road that could crash and kill them if they weren't careful. Yi Qian jumped from the tree, and the huge impact caused the steering wheel to slide down the driver's hand. He then fiercely pulled it back, causing the car to shake violently. Other than the driver, the other three people in the car immediately pulled out their guns and fired at the roof of the car. But Yi Qian was faster than them. Yi Qian didn't know if there was anyone in the back and how many people there were. The first thing he did after he jumped out of the car was to open fire. The car at the front didn't notice anything strange about the car behind them. The sound of the engine drowned out the noises of the insects in the mountain stream, and they continued to drive steadily out of the mountain village. Lena was sitting in the middle of the car, so when she heard the sound of something heavy falling from the back, she reflexively turned her head to look. Her beautiful eyes, filled with ruthlessness, instantly narrowed. There was someone on the roof of the car behind them. At the same time, the driver's voice came from the intercom in the car. "Someone's on the tail. Hurry up." Gunshots rang out. The driver gripped the steering wheel tightly, and sweat appeared on his forehead. He yelled, "Quick, shoot!" Before he could finish yelling, countless gunshots rang out, causing the driver's back to tremble. The hairs on his body stood on end. These gunshots, something was wrong. They didn't shoot out of the car, but they shot in from outside. The driver began to panic. His hands were trembling as he gripped the steering wheel tightly. He had to shake off the people in the car and make sure there wasn't anyone following them to buy time for Lena to escape. "How many people?" Lena asked sternly. "I found one for now." The driver immediately replied, his voice trembling slightly. Just as he finished speaking, he suddenly smelled a thick stench of blood in the car. The bean-sized sweat on his forehead flowed over his eyebrows, into his eyelashes, and into his eyes. Clenching the steering wheel tightly, the driver gritted his teeth and began to do his best to drive the Jeep out of the S-lane on the narrow road. He tried to throw off the person who was still on top of the car. One person, Lena didn't know that the bodyguards in the car behind her had been taken care of. The driver's reply made her feel slightly relieved. The storm in his eyes gradually calmed down, and even the tense expression on his face slowly relaxed. He gripped the gun tightly and said coldly, "Drive faster. Shake off the cars behind us." She did not intend to shoot at the car behind her. Instead, she ordered the driver to speed up. There was a driver and 3 of her trusted aides in the car behind her. They would naturally be able to solve the problem and meet up with her. If they couldn't, she could only feel regret. Even if these people were her trusted aides and villagers from her village, she could not stay because of them. She had earned so much money for every family in the village. Now that she was in danger, it was time for the villagers to do something about it. Every family in Lena's village made a living by selling drugs. Young people would be sent to General Minlai's army to train for 2 to 3 years before returning to the village. The stronger young people would be secretly sent to the black market to train for 1.5 years before returning to the village. This was not only the case in her village, but also in all the villages involved in drug trafficking. Chapter 47-46. Deep within the mountains of the Golden Triangle, there were overlapping mountains and rolling hills. The villages hidden in the green mountains and clear waters were isolated from the rest of the world. The scenery was beautiful, and there was no hustle and bustle of the city. It was like a paradise, a place to hide from the world. However, when all the evil was hidden in a paradise, the danger and evil became even more unfathomable. No matter how beautiful the scenery was, it was still an evil place. There were evil people in evil places, and Lena was one of them. Lena, who thought that she could take care of her trusted follower, ordered the driver to speed up. She didn't pay attention to the car behind her. She didn't know that the driver was shot in the head the next second after reporting that there was only one person. His hands were still tightly gripping the steering wheel. They lost control of the vehicle, and no one in the vehicle was controlling it. All of them were killed by the bullet tracks of the Z-shaped strafing bullets. The 2 cars in front took a big turn and disappeared into the night. Although Yi Qian's car was fast, it slowed down a lot in order to cover Lena's escape. The roof of the car, which had been hit by bullets, twisted and turned on the narrow mountain road. On the roof of the car, Yi Qian's hands were tightly gripping the luggage handle. He used his legs to kick the window of the driver's seat. Why did she risk her life to jump out of the car? It was to seize the car. All the cars in the village had been deliberately blown up by Lena. If she didn't seize the car, she wouldn't have been able to catch up to Lena. As for the undercover anti-narcotics police officer surnamed Liu, who was still in the village, he had taken advantage of the chaos to leave Wu Jinquan. Now that she could still hear the gunshots in the village, she believed that he could take advantage of the chaos to leave. Yi Jian failed to kick open the car window. She was sweating profusely, and even her hair was wet. She gritted her teeth and kicked the car window again. The car, which had no one controlling it, twisted in an S shape. There were a few times when it was about to crash into the cliff, but the bumpy mountain road twisted the steering wheel back. The car was no longer heading towards a cliff. Instead, it was heading towards the side of the mountain. It didn't give Yi Qian a third chance to kick the car window. Yi Qian, whose eyes were red, was forced to abandon the car. The moment he let go, Yi Qian let out a low whimper. Without the car, she couldn't catch up to Lena. If she couldn't catch up to Lena, she would run to the ends of the earth. No, even if she fled to the ends of the earth, she would definitely find her, definitely. Bang! The front of the car slammed into the mountain. Yi Qian, who only managed to stabilize herself after 2 rolls due to the immense inertia, did not give herself any time to catch her breath. Her knees, elbows, arms, face. Every part of her exposed skin was covered in bloody scars. Yi Qian raised her head. With a ball of fire in her eyes, she ran over again. She wanted to know if the front of the car that hit the mountain could be used again. At the front, Lena, who was gripping her pistol tightly, turned around to look behind her. The mountain road was pitch black, and there was no light. The car behind them didn't immediately follow. The bodyguard sitting in the back seat also turned around to take a look. He then retracted his gaze and said in a deep voice, "With Kong Wu driving, nothing will happen." They didn't catch up. It might be the general's men who caught up. Lena's eyes darkened as she clenched her fists and pressed her lips together. Faster. General, General. She was not afraid of Wu Jinquan. She was not afraid of all the drug lords in the Golden Triangle. She was only afraid of General Minlai. He was a man who could suppress the Burmese government and make them afraid of him. He was scared from the bottom of his heart. Faster. Lena, whose fingertips were still faintly trembling, once again lowered her voice and said lightly, "Someone will pick us up after we leave the village. We'll take a boat to Thailand, then change to a horse, and from Malaysia to Maribon. Believe me, I will definitely take you to Maribon after I take you out of the village." Chapter 47:47. Lena tried very hard to control her emotions so that the people around her would not notice that she was afraid. Once the people around her knew that she was afraid, it would be useless for her. Her calmness worked. The bandits who followed her out were all very capable. Now that Lena said that they would go to Maribon again, these bandits, whose hands were stained with blood, nodded slightly to show that they believed in her. They did believe in Lena. If they didn't, they wouldn't have abandoned the village and left. As for the other villagers in the village, they saw that Lena had made careful arrangements, so they didn't need to worry too much. However, there would definitely be casualties, but it didn't matter. Those who had guns would try their best to escape, but those who didn't, they weren't from their village, but illegal workers. A light flashed past the bend of the mountain stream. Before they could take a closer look, it suddenly disappeared. Lena looked at the car window and told them that Kong Wu had caught up with them. She had destroyed all the cars in the village, including the motorcycles. Therefore, Lena didn't think of anything else except for Kong Wu's car. At least 5,000 kilometers away from the core area of Myanmar's Golden Triangle, Xia Jinyuan, who had been busy with training for the whole day, was resting his feet on the desk. His tall and slender body was leaning against the big chair as if he was taking a light nap. As the light in the office was turned on, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. He was so tired that he was instantly awakened from his deep sleep. Little fox. Opening his eyes, Xia Jinyuan clutched his chest and bent over in pain. G3 turned on the light and came in. He didn't expect that Xia Jinyuan would be sleeping in the office. He wanted to apologize, but when he saw Xia Jinyuan clutching his chest and looking extremely pale, he rushed forward and asked, "Why do you look so pale? What happened to your chest?" Xia Jinyuan, who was clutching his chest, waited for the pain to subside. He waved his hand and said with a thin layer of sweat on his forehead, "Nothing. He had a nightmare. In the dream, his little fox was walking in front of him with blood all over her body. She walked very fast, as if she wanted to chase something. The more he shouted, the faster she walked. In the end, she actually ran, and the ground was full of bloody footprints. Although he didn't finish speaking, G3 knew what he was about to say. Seeing that Xia Jinyuan was not trying to be brave, G3 picked up the steel cup on the desk and poured a cup of warm water for him. What you think about in the day, you dream about it at night. She handed him a cup filled with warm water. Drink some water to calm your nerves. Xia Jinyuan took the cup and drank more than half of it in one gulp. Tomorrow, I will go to Xiang City. Keep a close eye on the team's training. After drinking half a cup of warm water, Xia Jinyuan gradually calmed down and regained his composure. Last time, when 2 people were shot, the boss was furious. He will come over in August for an inspection. Don't let the boss take the opportunity to kick you out. G3 couldn't help but laugh. You're the one who said you wanted to chase her away. Now, you're afraid that the boss will chase her away. Why? Are you really afraid that the boss will chase her away? Xia Jinyuan, who was rocking back and forth in his chair, smiled faintly and snorted. I've been keeping them by my side for 2 or 3 years. Wouldn't it be a huge loss for me to chase them away? If I really wanted to chase them away, I would have chased them away in the first year. Those who can stay are not cowards. Why would I chase them away? I'm just scaring them. You're really narrow-minded. Didn't you just say that your girlfriend wants to break up with you behind your back? Why do you keep it in your heart? You and Xing Niao haven't talked to each other for 1.5 years. You didn't even send her a letter. Are you blaming them for talking too much? Chapter 47-48. G3 sat directly in front of the desk, holding a pen in his hand. He glanced at Xia Jinyuan, whose expression sank a bit at the mention of Yi Qian's name. His thick eyebrows couldn't help but furrow. Did you get anything from the boss today? She's been gone for 4 or 5 months. If she doesn't come back soon, will she be able to make it in time for the graduation ceremony? You'll leave tomorrow and arrive in Xiang City the day after tomorrow. The day after tomorrow is Yi Qian's graduation ceremony. Now that there's no news, are you planning to go and attend Yi Qian's graduation ceremony? The boss still didn't reveal anything. At the mention of Yi Qian, who hadn't been heard from for 4 or 5 months, and then thinking of the nightmare he just had, Xia Jinyuan's eyes darkened a bit. There's no problem at all. He only said that she's very safe now. Xia Jinyuan, whose eyebrows were furrowed, clenched the steel cup in his hand. His mellow voice added a bit of color. Some time ago, he said that she could make it back in time for the graduation ceremony, so I took a break. When he asked again today, he simply said that I was too tired from training and that it would be good to take a break and go back to my alma mater as a vacation. If Yi Qian is really as safe as he said, I won't be surnamed Xia. I'll be surnamed Yang. He put the cup on the desk with a bit more force, and even the water in the cup splashed out. G3 looked at the rippling cup, and the corners of his mouth tightened a little. If something really happened to Yi Qian, if the boss didn't say, we would know. In the end, it's still the same thing. Get Yi Qian to our team as soon as possible. Once he's in our team, everything can be discussed. Xia Jinyuan took a deep breath and slowly nodded. He got up and put on his training camouflage hat. I'll wait for her in Xiang City. If there's news, I'll tell you. Go rest early. G3 glanced at his heart and secretly restrained his worry. Although it was said that what you think about in the day, you dream at night, the 2 of them were lovers and comrades. Their tacit understanding was far beyond theirs. If something really happened to one side, and the other side suddenly felt it, G3, who casually turned off the light, secretly patted his cheek and forbade himself from thinking too deeply. Baba, what really happened? Who is Xiao Yi? Even the male soldiers in the team had to admit defeat to the female soldiers. Nothing would happen to them. Every step he took was big and heavy. Xia Jinyuan pressed his chest where his heart was. There was coldness in his dark eyes. His little fox was not safe. He was very sure. However, he couldn't rush to her side. He didn't even know where she was. He didn't even have the right to be angry. A soldier's duty was to obey orders. A soldier's duty was to obey orders. A soldier. It was their duty to obey orders. As Xia Jinyuan muttered these words in his heart, he suddenly staggered as he walked down the stairs. He only managed to stabilize himself by holding onto the wall with one hand. Behind him, G3 watched silently, the worry in his eyes deepening. Yi Qian, Qingyao, you, who haven't joined the Snowfield Brigade, can't let anything happen to you. You must protect yourself well. Here are your loved ones and comrades waiting for your return. They are all waiting for your return. In the distance, Yi Qian, who was in another country, gripped the steering wheel tightly and slammed into the car in front of him again, even though he had been shot in the shoulder. The smell of blood was so strong that even the wind that blew in was filled with the smell of blood. Every time Yi Jian turned the steering wheel, a pool of blood would gush out from the wound. The heart-wrenching pain caused Yi Jian's back to break out in cold sweat. His face was pale, and his back was drenched in cold sweat. Bang! Bang! Bullets were fired from the car in front of him again, forcing Yi Qian to tense up. He couldn't observe the road at all. His shoulder was shot from the front and back of the car, which didn't have any windshields. Chapter 47-49. The car in front of Yi Qian's car was in no better condition than Yi Qian's car. Moreover, the first thing Yi Qian did when he caught up with the car in front was to shoot the wheels so that she could catch up immediately. The moment the windshield of the car in front of her was shattered, only the left side of the car in front of her was illuminated. Yi Qian knew that Lena was not in the car. Half an hour ago, Lena noticed the headlights of a car coming from the opposite mountain stream. At first, she did not think much of it, thinking that it was her confidant who had successfully escaped and caught up with her. However, when she saw that the headlights of the car in front of her were so bright that it was blinding, Lena's face darkened. She ordered the car in front of her to stop, and then she switched to the car in front. The headlights of the cars that caught up with her were obviously much dimmer. If Kongwu had successfully dragged her away, how could the headlights of the cars be dimmer? There was only one possibility. Kongwu's escape was not smooth. The cunning Lena had always been cautious. Otherwise, she would not have gone over her lover Qin Mongsane and become General Minlai's subordinate. Just the bright headlights of the cars made her vigilant, and she quickly switched to another car. Before switching, she strictly ordered her confidant to shoot at Kongwu's car as soon as they found anything strange. She could not be soft-hearted. Just like that, Lena, who was originally in the second car, switched to the car in front. The person in the car that Yi Qian had hit was actually the person in the first car. Lena, who had switched to the first car, was so angry that her face was distorted. Her confidant in the second car told her that the person who caught up with them was actually an ant that she could have easily killed in the past. The Chinese girl who had survived in the end and was living well right under her nose. Didn't you and Maji check that there was nothing wrong with her? Now she's the only one who is chasing us. Rana, do you still dare to tell me that there is nothing wrong with her? Lena, who was so angry that the veins on her neck were bulging, stared fiercely at the driver who was driving. The driver was none other than Rana, the driver who had kidnapped Yi Qian all the way to the core of the Golden Triangle. Emoji, on the other hand, was the Burmese man who coaxed Yi Qian into the car with fluent Chinese. Maji and Rana were both Lena's men. The group of drug dealers who used the temple as a cover and pretended to be monks were also Lena's men. Even Wu Jinquan, who entered the temple that night, didn't know about it, and neither did General Minlai. The reason why Lena was able to give up on the entire poison-making stronghold was because she had already prepared an escape route for herself. She didn't place all her hopes on General Minlai. Although her goal was not one of the biggest drug dealers in the Golden Triangle, as long as she was given time, with her ruthlessness and intelligence, she would become a big drug lord in time. Right now, this courageous and resourceful female drug dealer was glaring at the driver, Lana, with a ferocious expression. Her chest was heaving up and down violently as she gnashed her teeth and said, "Kill her. I want to cut off her head with my own hands." The driver, Lana, drove steadily, seemingly unaffected by Lena's anger. "As long as she can catch up with us alive, I will kill her, and I will let you cut off her head with your own hands." "Good. I'll give you a chance. Lena, who was gritting her teeth so hard that they almost broke, leaned back against the back of the seat. She was so angry that she couldn't recover for a while. Let the monks deal with Maji. He will become a big problem for us if we keep him. Yes. The bodyguard who had been protecting Lena loyally replied. Chapter 4750. Emoji was one of the core members who had been transporting human goods to Lena. He rarely returned to the village in order to avoid being noticed. Now that the matter had been exposed and Emoji was not by her side, killing him was the best choice to prevent the Chinese, Burmese, Thai, and Laotian governments from finding him and prying out more information against Lena. Especially General Min Lai. If he found Emoji, the entire temple would be exposed. On the steep mountain road behind her, Yi Qian's eyes were sharp as she faced the sudden car that was trying to hit her. She gripped the steering wheel tightly and stepped on the accelerator. As the engine's vroom, vroom, vroom grew louder and louder, Yi Qian gritted her teeth. Instead of reversing, she charged forward and hit the car that was trying to hit her. A pool of blood gushed out of the gunshot wound on her shoulder. There was so much blood that it soaked her entire chest and even her pants. Yi Qian was clearly injured, but after being shot, she was secretly glad that it was a small caliber bullet and not a penetrating wound. It was a great fortune amidst misfortune. In the car in front, a Burmese man was still alive, but his right wrist had been pierced by a bullet. He was in so much pain that his face was pale as he shouted at the driver, F***CK? Knock her back. Knock her back. Knock her off the cliff. She killed Kong Wu and the others. Let's avenge Kong Wu. Kill her. Kill her. The driver also had a fierce look on his face. This was the time to fight with their lives. Let's see who kills who first. He was reversing, while Yi Qian was going forward. The undercover anti-narcotics police officer surnamed Liu rushed out of the mountain on a motorcycle and saw this scene. His eyes widened as he shouted, Yi Qian! All the diesel in the motorcycle was poured out by Lena's order. Officer Liu, who had secretly taken care of Wu Jinkoan, rushed to the drug factory and found a barrel of gasoline that was usually used for cleaning and dissolving. This was a necessity in every drug manufacturing factory. Officer Liu had relied on this barrel of gasoline to drive the motorcycle all the way out of the stockade. The female soldier was not in the village, and Lena was running away. If he were the female soldier, what would he do? Of course, he would kill Lena. However, Officer Liu did not expect to see a scene of mutual destruction when he rushed out of the village. With a hoarse roar, he stepped on the accelerator of the motorcycle and sped towards the two cars that were about to collide. Yi Qian heard the sound of a motorcycle behind her. She also heard the voice of the undercover narcotics officer, surnamed Liu. She didn't turn around. Instead, she stepped on the accelerator and rushed forward with determination. Kill her. Ram her to death. A ferocious roar came from the carriage in front, so loud that even Yi Qian could vaguely hear it. Run her over? Huh. I'm sorry. She didn't want to die. She still needed to bring Lena to justice. No, that wasn't right. She needed to kill Lena on the spot. The two cars were getting closer and closer. Neither side had any intention of stopping. The driver of the car in front was completely enraged. His eyes were as red as blood. He gritted his teeth and stepped on the accelerator again. Let's see who will knock the other off the cliff. 5 meters for meters, 3 meters, 2 meters. Yi Qian! Stop! Stop! Stop it right now. Officer Liu roared. He was only in his early 30s, but he had already experienced the pain of countless comrades sacrificing themselves in front of him. And this time, his ferocious eyes seemed to see a scene that he did not want to see at all. Yi Qian, who did not answer, heard the roar of ram her to death from the car in front. Suddenly, with both hands on the steering wheel, she swerved to the left with great agility. She would go back alive. She would go back alive. Chapter 4751. Do you know how to avoid a one-sided collision? Remember, first find a fulcrum and make the car lose its balance. The 4 wheels are one high and one low. Step on the accelerator and hold the steering wheel tightly. One of the wheels is lifted off the fulcrum, and the other wheel is used to support the entire car. Her lover's handsome face was cold, and his tone was serious. He taught her step by step and explained very carefully so that she could find the trick as soon as possible. The man she loved deeply was still waiting for her to return. So how could she let them kill her? Her best days had just begun, and her journey had just begun. She hadn't found Uncle Chin's murderer, and she hadn't paid more for the military uniform. How could she be killed by the enemy? So, this was definitely not her burial ground. Even if she died, she would be the one to kill them. One of the wheels was on the mountain, while the other was on the ground. Yichien turned his head and glanced coldly at the car coming from the other side. Under the other party's incredulous gaze, Yichien turned the steering wheel to the outside. No. Ah, bang. Bang. Dong. Two frightened voices came from the car driven by Yichien and squeezed into the cliff. Accompanied by their horrified cries of imminent death, the car squeezed into the cliff on the narrow mountain road. They thought that they would definitely be able to take care of the Chinese girl who was biting them. They were very confident. But what happened? The car crashed into the cliff, and the entire car was turned upside down. The world was spinning, and it was too late. Behind them, Officer Lu's pupils constricted as he looked at the scene less than 3 meters away from him. The mountain wind blew, and his back was drenched in cold sweat. This thing actually worked she actually squeezed the other car into the cliff. No wonder Captain Deng told him that the female soldier's actions would be arranged by her, and he didn't need to intervene. No wonder Captain Deng told him that since Wu Jinquan was dead, the next actions would be arranged by the female soldier. He also told him that he must trust the female soldier and not underestimate her because of her gender or age. Now he understood. The car fell into a bottomless cliff, and the trees and shrubs that grew near the cliff were all crushed, producing a large number of kacha snapping sounds. The metal collided with the rock, and the ground trembled faintly, lingering for a long time. Yichien pushed open the car door. A pair of strong hands supported her stumbling body. Looking up, Yichien smiled when he saw who it was. Officer Lu held her hands tightly and wanted to ask if she was okay, but the hand holding her quickly pulled away. The person who was standing in front of him a moment ago had already turned to stand behind him. Lena is in front. We can't let her escape from the Golden Triangle. Yichien stood firmly with a headscarf in his hand. By the time he finished speaking, he was already seated on the back seat of the motorcycle. You came at the right time. Once you've dealt with her, we can return home together. The reason why Yi Jian sat up quickly was because she did not want him to see the gunshot wound on her shoulder. She didn't even have time to deal with it. She had to hurry up and catch up with Lena. Once Lena escaped from the Golden Triangle, perhaps she would abandon the car and escape into the vast jungle. It would be like looking for a needle in a haystack to find Lena. Officer Lu looked at his palm, full of blood, and his lips trembled. He still hadn't recovered from the shocking scene just now. He wanted to say something, but the female soldier sitting behind him said calmly, "It's not my blood. It's the blood of the people in the car." Chapter 4752. Yi Jian, who was sitting at the back, didn't even look at his wound. His cold voice came calmly. "We can't give Lena a chance to escape. We are a certain distance away from her now. We can't delay any longer. Hurry." He didn't want to give Officer Lu a chance to look back at her. If he looked again, he might be exposed. Looking inside the car, Officer Lu gently closed his eyes and said, "Sit tight. Lu Chung, Lena is the second most important target for the Yun Province Police. If possible, you must kill her while protecting yourself." This was the short 2-minute conversation he had with Captain Deng before he chased out on his motorcycle. He told Captain Deng that he had taken care of Wu Jinquan during the chaos. The female soldier, Yi Qian's whereabouts were unknown. It was very likely that they were chasing after Lena. Captain Deng told him to trust the female soldier's ability and to cooperate with her to kill the second most important target. Now, it was time to kill the second most important target. I've already contacted Captain Deng. After we take care of Lena, We'll head to the border of Yun province immediately. There will be helicopters patrolling to ensure that we can return home immediately. Lena needs to be taken care of. Captain Deng reminded us that we must take care of ourselves and not force ourselves. Just now, if Captain Deng was here, he would have severely criticized you. Officer Lu's voice was distorted by the wind. Yi Jian, who was secretly bandaging the gunshot wound on her shoulder with a scarf to stop the bleeding, said with a smile, "I only did that because I was confident. These are the courses that I used to train in. It looks dangerous, but in fact, it's not that dangerous for us. We've done more dangerous things. Driving a car on one side is easy." Her casual reply made Officer Lu smile faintly. "You're a member of the Special Forces, and there are very few women in the Special Forces, especially an outstanding Special Forces soldier like you. You're like a rare treasure. So, nothing must happen to you. Nothing must happen to you. Captain Deng ordered me to bring you back to the country safely. Don't worry, Captain Deng. I also want to return safely. After we take care of Lena, we'll go back immediately without delay. No problem. That's all." Okay. The narcotic squad and the Army Special Forces, who were from different systems but had fought side by side in the same mission, made an agreement with each other in the wind to return home together. They stepped on the accelerator of the motorcycle and chased after her. Whether or not they could catch up to her was not within their scope of consideration. They only had one goal: to kill Lena. On the mountain road, less than 10 kilometers away from the motorcycle, a jeep steadily and quickly drove along the narrow mountain road out of the vast mountains. Everything that happened behind them was far away from them. They did not know what was happening behind them, nor did they know that someone was chasing after them. The mountain path hidden in the forest continued to meander, leading to the place of hope. 10 minutes later, the driver, Lana, glanced at the mountain stream on the other side, his eyes cold. "There's a light passing by," he whispered, waking Lena, who was resting behind him. Opening her eyes, Lena quickly asked, "What light? Headlights?" "It doesn't look like a headlight," Lana answered. "It's a single beam of light that's slightly brighter than a single headlight. It might be a motorcycle headlight." "Impossible. If all the motorcycles had been emptied, there wouldn't have been any motorcycles." The Burmese man, sitting in the passenger seat, pressed on the edge of the car window with one hand and stuck his head out of the window. He gritted his teeth and replied, "Are you sure?" Chapter 4753. Lena had her suspicions about the motorcycles chasing after them. All the vehicles in the stockade, including the 3 that Wu Jinquan drove, were destroyed. There was no fuel left in the fuel tanks. It was the same for the motorcycles. All the fuel had been drained. How could there be motorcycles? Oil drums in the factory. After Lana finished speaking coldly, he stepped on the accelerator slightly and sped up again. The expressions of everyone in the car, including Lena, changed. Lena's expression turned stern as she glanced at her trusted aide sitting in front of her. Lena didn't need to say anything to know that Lana was right. The oil drums in the factory, they forgot to deal with them. Lena took a deep breath and said calmly, "The ones chasing after us are Wu Jinquan's men. Only they know that there will be oil drums in the factory. We can't rule out the possibility that they escaped in advance." Lena looked at Lana from the corner of her eye. "We can go straight into the mountains. Lana, come with me. The 3 of you stay and see who's chasing after us." His eyes were gloomy and cold. "No matter who it is, kill them all. If it's that Chinese girl who's chasing after us, bring her to me. You know the place. Come and meet us after you've dealt with all the tales." Lena planned to abandon the car and enter the mountains. It wasn't safe to drive at this time. It was easier to escape into the mountains. It wasn't a problem to hide a few people in the vast mountains. Besides, this was her territory. This mountain, be it Wu Jinquan's men or General Min Lai's men, no one was familiar with her, who had been born and raised here. Lana nodded, indicating that he had no objections. The other 3 in the car nodded. They were also very familiar with this place. As for that Chinese girl, they would only know if she was still alive after they met her. Lena closed her eyes to hide the trembling deep in her face. She had to stay calm. She had to stay calm. Even if the people chasing after them were the general's best assassins, she would definitely be able to escape successfully. Lena didn't care about Wu Jinquan's men. She didn't even care about Yi Qian. She was most afraid of General Min Lai's men. It was normal to be afraid of someone who had once controlled her life and death. The motorcycle speed was very fast. The narrow mountain road was relatively narrow for vehicles, but it was very spacious for motorcycles. Lu Ning, the undercover anti-narcotics police officer, stared coldly ahead, steadily driving the motorcycle into the darkness ahead. After making a big turn, Yi Qian, who had been observing the situation in front of him, suddenly pressed forward. The target vehicle has stopped. Remember the approximate location. Lu Ning analyzed in a deep voice. The more they were at a time like this, the clearer their minds were. They could not make any mistakes. There are 3 possibilities. First, Lena gets off the car first and enters the mountain. Second, someone gets off the car to ambush her. Third, Lena gets off the car and the car continues to move forward. Yi Qian watched as the car rose and disappeared again. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. I choose the third possibility. The target gets off the car and enters the mountain. The car continues to move forward. Lu Ning asked, "Are you sure?" Yi Qian nodded. Yes. After all, he had been by Lena's side for a few months. If he didn't even know what kind of person Lena was, then he would be too incompetent. The disappearing headlights suddenly turned back. This time, it wasn't moving forward, but the car reversed. Both of them saw it clearly, and their faces darkened at the same time. The fourth possibility appeared. Lena escaped into the mountain, and the car reversed to block her, not to lure the enemy away. Chapter 4754. Target number 2 is quite cautious. Lu Ning, with his back slightly arched, spoke in a muffled voice. The strong wind blew away his voice and made it sound a little muffled in Yi Qian's ears. Since we've turned around, why don't we? In the wind, Yi Qian's cold voice drifted into the ears of Lu Ning, the undercover drug police who had been by Wu Jinquan's side for 3 years. When the cold voice disappeared, Lu Ning had a faint smile in his eyes. Okay, he answered Yi Qian with a single word, indicating that he trusted Yi Qian completely and would cooperate with all arrangements. As the motorcycle sped up again, the jeep had to stop before they reached the most suitable place. If it didn't stop now, they would run into the pursuers before they were ready. Get out. The driver stopped the car and quickly opened the door. The other 2 got out of the car. The driver, who got out first, opened the trunk and grabbed 3 times with one hand. All 3 of them had guns in their hands. They acted quickly. The jeep hidden in the corner opened all 4 doors. The 3 of them hid behind the open doors and stared ahead coldly, waiting for the motorcycle to come over. They would shoot immediately regardless of who it was. 3 minutes later, the sound of the motorcycle's engine came closer. The lights suddenly disappeared. The 3 of them who were hiding behind the doors were stunned. What's going on? No one dared to cross the line. They could only guess what the other party would do. At the same time, they were vigilant of their surroundings to prevent a sneak attack. The lights of the motorcycle that lit up the mountain road went off, and the engine continued to roar. The 3 of them clenched their guns tightly and gritted their teeth so hard that grooves appeared in their cheeks. The Burmese man hiding in the back door whispered, "How many people will there be?" "I'm not sure." "Did they suddenly stop because they found out that we're here?" The Burmese man hiding behind the left door in front said viciously, "Damn it, do they know how to turn around?" They had deliberately turned around and waited with the engine turned off because they wanted to get rid of them immediately. But the motorcycle didn't move and even turned off. Damn it, they must have found out. Wait, we'll chase after them. The Burmese man hiding behind the driver's door said coldly. Although his voice was hoarse, the other 2 couldn't compare to his ruthlessness. He was Lena's most trusted and most capable subordinate other than the driver, Lana. He was responsible for all the people outside who needed to be dealt with. Lena had asked him to stay because she was afraid that the pursuers were General Min Lai's men. His expression was cold and bloodthirsty, like a wild beast pouncing on its prey. Even the breath he exhaled was filled with the stench of blood. The engine of the motorcycle, which had its headlights turned off, suddenly increased in volume and rushed forward. The man's lips curled up coldly. 1, 2, 3, fire. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. Bullets rained down on the motorcycle that didn't slow down at all. His fingers tightened on the trigger, and he didn't stop even when the muzzle was burning and smoking. With such a dense barrage of fire, it was possible to break a person's limbs and bones and kill them on the spot. Then, the motorcycle did not slow down. It maintained the same speed as before and directly crashed into the Jeep. At the same time, bullets were fired in the Jeep's direction. On the mountain, Yi Qian passed through the dense forest. Even though the resilient branches whipped her wound that she had painstakingly bandaged, causing the tissues around the wound to tremble from the pain, she did not stop. She carried the rifle that Lu Ning had given her and nimbly climbed up a tree. He quickly grabbed the rifle from his shoulder and placed the barrel on the tree branch, moving along with the high speed of the motorcycle. Chapter 4755. The motorcycle remained where it was and continued to charge forward. F***CK. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Back off. The Burmese man, whose breath reeked of blood, finally realized something was amiss and shouted. There was no one on the motorcycle. The motorcycle had been tampered with. Even if they ran out of bullets, the modified motorcycle would not stop. The motorcycle, which only had one tail light, charged forward. After all, no one was controlling the motorcycle, so the modified motorcycle could not turn on its own. When it charged out of the corner, it fell off the cliff. Bang! A bullet was fired from the rifle in Yi Qian's hand. It pierced through the air and headed straight for the motorcycle's fuel tank. Bang! Another bullet rushed out of the barrel, following closely behind the first bullet. The first bullet hit the motorcycle's fuel tank, followed by the second bullet that was 0.01 seconds slower. Boom! The fuel tank exploded, and the second bullet shot through the fuel tank, creating sparks. The sparks ignited the oil in the fuel tank, and the sound of an explosion rang out. The fire instantly exploded like a cloud of light, illuminating the surroundings. Target found. The gun barrel on the branch moved, and Yi Qian aimed at the target with a sharp gaze. Bang! The third bullet rushed out of the barrel and went straight to the target the crosshair was aiming at. Target, the back of the head. The bullet pierced through the hard skull, shattering the skull and rupturing the brain tissue. It then exited from between the eyebrows with bloody fragments of bone. The person who was shot didn't even have time to cry for help. He fell to the ground and died on the spot. Blood slowly flowed out, wetting the small stones on the mountain path. Gong! Gong! Another Burmese man saw that his companion had been shot and shouted at the top of his lungs, "There's someone on the mountain! There's someone on the mountain!" He raised the gun in his hand and fired blindly at the mountain. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. The bullets were so dense that they broke countless branches and shredded countless leaves. He fired wildly, not caring whether his bullets hit the target or not. Yi Qian was not in the direction he was shooting at, and his crazy actions gave her an opportunity. The motorcycle with the detonated fuel tank had fallen off the cliff. The glaring fire gradually disappeared, leaving only the flickering flames at the bottom of the cliff. The grass in the forest that was set ablaze by the cloud of fire made crackling sounds. The smell of burning trees mixed with the smoke of fuel and gunpowder drifted away with the mountain wind. The Burmese man, whose aura reeked of blood, was the fastest to hide. He stuck close to the mountain and looked up into the dense foliage. The shot was too fast, and he had dodged in a hurry, so he didn't see where the shooter was hiding. At least two people. There was one person on the mountain, and there was another person in front. It shouldn't be the Chinese girl that Lena wanted to get rid of. It was very likely that she was an assassin sent by the general. Only the general would have such capable people. Then he saw his companion standing in the middle of the mountain road and firing wildly. Up ahead, there was no movement on the mountain. The Burmese man who reeked of blood suppressed his voice and shouted, "Yeah, come here. Come here quickly. They kill Gong, they kill Gong. I want to kill them. I want to kill them." The man called, "Yeah," began to retreat, but he did not stop shooting. No matter how many bullets he had, he couldn't stop his crazy shooting. He only retreated because it was time to change the magazine. Yi Qian, who was hiding at an angle, moved his gun as the man moved. When a muzzle was slightly off to the right of the target's heart, he pulled the trigger with both hands that were stained with his own blood. Chapter 4756. Bang! The sound of a bullet rang out. The Burmese man who was shot in the chest let out a dull groan. He stopped shooting and fell forward. In the light of the burning vegetation, the Burmese man who was hiding close to the mountain saw his companion fall in front of him. His bulging eyes glowed fiercely as he picked up his submachine gun and fired diagonally. He knew where the person who fired the shot was hiding. Right at the diagonal. Bang, 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 bang. Bang, bang, bang. The bullets were fired crazily again. Lu Ning listened to the gunshots that were fired towards the top of the mountain. He tightened his waist and rushed to the front of the jeep in a few strides. Without hesitation, he fired immediately. Yi Qian, who had jumped down from the tree, was hit by a stray bullet again. The bullet grazed her thigh and left a bloody mark on her leg. F***CK. Yi Qian, who was crouching close to the bush, cursed. Fighting alone was really difficult. Even the slightest bit of carelessness could cost you your life. Next, it was up to her partner. Yi Qian, who couldn't get up at all, even took a bite of the bush in her mouth. It hurt. Every wound hurt. She chewed on something to distract herself. A few pieces of gravel, shattered by bullets, fell down, and some of them hit the back of Yi Qian's head. The feeling of stones raining from the sky was not pleasant. Yi Qian endured the severe pain and slowly crawled forward while Lu Ning was shooting. Lu Ning had no choice but to focus on both sides. She didn't retreat. Instead, she moved forward. If Lu Ning didn't hit the enemy, then she would attack from the front. If the two of them worked together, they would definitely succeed. She just didn't know how far Lena would run. As for whether or not she could find Lena, she wasn't worried. There would be traces of her footsteps in the mountain. As long as there were traces, she would be able to find Lena. She had said before that no matter where Lena ran to, she would find her. Yi Qian's twisted body moved. She even held her breath. A few more bullets were fired. The bullets hit the hard rocks covered in moss, and sparks flew. Yi Qian, whose head was still buried, took a deep breath of the smell of soil and rotten leaves and stopped crawling for a moment. In front of the jeep, Lu Ning opened fire again. His ammunition was limited, so he couldn't shoot as wildly as his opponent. Yi Qian crawled again. His hands gripped the bush tightly as he tried to pull himself up. Tis! The gunshot wound on his shoulder tore, and the bullet seemed to have shifted. The pain made Yi Qian's abdomen tighten, and his face was as pale as a sheet of paper. He didn't injure any vital parts, but if he continued to lose too much blood, it would be dangerous. But she couldn't stop. When the enemy needed to reload, Yi Qian heard a low curse coming from below. His dark eyes suddenly lit up, and he leaped up. His hands gripped the bushes tightly as he weaved through the gaps between the trees to find a spot to jump onto the mountain path. A cold voice drifted from the mountains into the ears of Lu Ning, whose arm was also covered in blood. He didn't reload. Quick! When a voice was heard, the expressions of the two people on the mountain path changed. Lu Ning was happy, but the Burmese man was cold. A woman's voice. It was the woman who had been abducted by the Chinese. She didn't die. Lu Ning, who had joy on his face, quickly turned cold. The other party didn't have a magazine to reload, and he also had no bullets in his gun. Damn it. Let's do it. Lu Ning threw away his pistol and rushed out. His eyes were filled with viciousness as he charged forward with his bare hands. The Burmese man, who had lost his magazine, quickly reacted. He raised his fist with a fierce expression and punched the black shadow that was charging at him. Chapter 4757. A submachine gun without a magazine was just a piece of scrap metal. The Burmese man didn't want to bother himself with a piece of scrap metal. He clenched his right hand into a fist and pulled out his left hand. He held a dagger in his left hand and stabbed it towards Lu Ning, who was charging at him. Lu Ning knew a thing or two about the vicious thugs around drug dealers, because he was also one of them. Daggers were weapons that they would never leave their side. His opponent had one, but so did he. The only difference was that his opponent wasn't injured, so his movements weren't affected. On the other hand, he was shot in the arm, so his movements were a bit sluggish. Bang! The two met face to face for the first time, and they both saw daggers in each other's hands. Lu Ning bent down and barely dodged the dagger in his opponent's left hand, but he didn't manage to dodge the opponent's fist. The fist smashed into his shoulder with such force that it felt as if a boulder had fallen from the sky. His entire right arm was trembling from the impact. Blood flowed down his right arm like small blood-colored snakes. Left-handed. His opponent was left-handed. "Who are you people?" the Burmese man said coldly. His dagger was still in a stabbing position, and his right hand slowly reached for the wound on his waist. Lu Ning bent down and dodged the opponent's dagger. He used a strange posture to cut the opponent's waist. Holding the dagger that was stained with blood, Lu Ning glanced at the opponent's pants pocket and said coldly in Burmese, "You took Brother Kuen's money and gave it to Brother Kuen's enemy, and you even killed Brother Kuen's men. Tell me, who are we?" "Wu Jin Kuen's men." The corner of the Burmese man's mouth twitched coldly. "So you're Brother Kuen's men. Brother Kuen is so capable, he even sent his men to Lena. No wonder Brother Kuen brought his men up the mountain. We have a mole on our side." "Wrong. She was Brother Kuen's woman from the very beginning. How could she be a mole?" Lu Ning said as he took the initiative to attack. The opponent kept asking questions to buy time for Lena. Lena must have heard everything on the other side of the phone. He had already cooperated with her, and it was time to solve the problem. Both of them had daggers in their hands, and they were trying their best to knock the opponent's weapons away. Under the cover of the night, their fists and daggers were aimed at each other's vital points. It was a battle of life and death. Every move was filled with ferocity. In the mountains, Lena clenched her phone tightly. Her eyes were bloodshot. Wu Jinkuan's men. The Chinese girl who had pretended to be in front of her for months was actually Wu Jinkuan's subordinate. No wonder she learned Burmese in less than 3 months. She knew it from the very beginning. "It's no wonder that you've always been able to complete my tasks well and have never been beaten up. So you've already undergone special training." Lena, who was holding the phone tightly, gritted her teeth, and a gloomy voice was squeezed out from her twisted lips. No wonder after returning from Laos, Wu Jinkuan started to make small movements. So he was the one who knew that I was the general's subordinate. Driver Lana obviously did not expect this, but after thinking about it, he felt that there was nothing strange about it. After whispering a few words, Lena's lips curled into a cold smile. "Since she's one of Brother Kuen's men, there's nothing to be afraid of. Yes, Onwen's ability is something that even the general's men are wary of. Wu Jinkuan's men are overestimating themselves against Onwen." The driver, Lana, bent down slightly. His hoarse voice sounded like a venomous snake slithering across rough tree bark. It was creepy. Chapter 4758. Lana said what Lena was thinking. As long as it wasn't General Minlai's men. Lena pulled off a leaf and rubbed it in her palm. She hung up the phone and walked into the depths of the mountain. She waited for Onwen to join her. The fight on the mountain path was still going on. The daggers in their hands were all knocked away, and they were fighting like two wild beasts. Fist to fist, leg to leg. Every attack was a fatal fight. More and more blood flowed out of the gunshot wound on Lu Ning's arm. The smell of blood mixed with sweat drifted into Onwen's nose. Onwen smiled viciously. Bam! Lu Ning's fist was about to hit Angwen's chest, but his arm was clamped down by Angwen. Angwen's cold voice came in the night wind. "You've been shot here, haven't you?" The bullet wound was pressed down hard by his rough thumb, and his fingers dug into the wound. Even a man of iron and steel could not help but scream in pain. Pain! Pain! The pain was so excruciating that his flesh was peeled off. Hearing Lu Ning scream, Onwen laughed viciously. "Does it hurt? Does it hurt a lot?" Onwen's thumb dug into the wound and dug into the flesh. In the darkness, Onwin's eyes were filled with the viciousness of a beast. Lu Ning screamed and only allowed himself to lose control once. He raised his leg and kicked Onwin's abdomen. "It hurts. I'm going to kill you too." At the same time, he grabbed Onwin's left hand that was clinging to the gunshot wound on his arm and twisted it. A roar came from his throat, clamping down on Onwin's left hand. Following the kick, Onwin's entire body fell back. Crack! The sound of dislocation rang out clearly. Onwin's left elbow was dislocated by Lu Ning. Angwen took a deep breath. It was very painful, but to Angwen, who was like a ferocious beast, he could still laugh, even if his arm was still in Lu Ning's hands. Angwen's knees were bent, and his eyes were filled with ferocity. He chose to engage in close combat where both sides would be injured. He used his bent knee to kick Lu Ning's abdomen. Lu Ning let go. His entire right arm was in so much pain that it was trembling. All the strength in his body seemed to be gradually draining away along with the blood flowing out of the wound. Taking a step back, Onwin laughed and breathed heavily. After moving his shoulders, he easily fixed his dislocated elbow. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, he sneered coldly, "Brother Cohen, all the people around you are useless. Is a dislocated elbow an injury? Kill me? Can you kill me?" His repositioned left arm swung a little, and he was able to move it freely. The muscles on his arm bulged inch by inch, and his valiant muscles and bones made people instinctively feel afraid. In the middle of the night, Lu Ning could not see how strong his muscles were, but he could feel the other party's abnormal strength. Lu Ning's right arm was twitching as he gasped for air. His abdomen was in so much pain that he couldn't even stand up straight. His ears were buzzing, and he knew who the Burmese man was. Onwin. Anwin was a professional assassin by Lena's side. She was the one who took care of all the bloody matters outside. 4 years ago, there was a temple massacre in the Golden Triangle, and Anwin was the main character. Against Onwin, Lu Ning did not have much confidence. These professional assassins all had abnormal training, and their pain nerves seemed to have been stripped clean. Even if they were shot, they would not feel pain. A mere dislocation was nothing to them. Lu Ning slowly stood up. He had no way out. He had to deal with this person. "Female, soldier Yi Qian. I'll leave Lena to you." Chapter 4759. It seemed that not only was the killing intent of the profession stripped away, but also the ace special forces like Yi Qian. Yi Qian, who had also undergone abnormal training, pulled an old vine down from the mountain and happened to hear Lu Ning scream. Yi Qian, who had pulled the old vine tightly, bent his legs, slightly adjusted his breathing, and ran towards Onwin. According to the plan, if there was only one target left, she would leave it to Lu Ning to deal with, and she would immediately go after Lena. But now, Lu Ning was no match for Onwin, so she had to turn back. Onwin attacked again, and he was in a hurry. Lu Ning wanted to kill him, and he also wanted to kill Lu Ning faster. The mole, who had stayed by Lena's side for 4 to 5 months and didn't show any signs of movement until now. He probably went after Lena. A mole who could hide by Lena's side for 4 to 5 months and pretend to be under his nose for 4 to 5 months without being suspected by anyone. Onwin subconsciously regarded Yi Qian as a strong opponent that was difficult to deal with. Lu Ning used one arm to block Onwin's kick, and the fist that came at his face made him hurriedly tilt his head to avoid it. Even so, half of his face was still hit by Onwin's fist. Even if it brushed past, Lu Ning only felt that half of his face had been cut by a knife. The pain in his face was so great that it affected the nerves in his eyes, and he closed one of his eyes. Even the speed of his resistance was temporarily sluggish. Onwin's mocking laughter sounded in his ears. Bang! His chin was hit by Onwin's iron fist, and Lu Ning, whose face was twisted in pain, had his head buzzing from this punch. Even half of his teeth were knocked away by Onwin. Lu Ning, whose eyes were bloodshot, knew that he had no chance of winning. Onwin's bent knee came at him again. Lu Ning roared and suddenly slammed into Onwin. His hands tightly wrapped around Onwin's waist and slammed into the side of the mountain road. There was a cliff on the other side of the mountain road. If he fell down, there would be nothing left of him. Onwin sensed Lu Ning's intention. After roaring twice, she didn't struggle to escape. She turned her arms into elbows and used her elbows to hit Lu Ning's back again and again. The back and ribs were all Onwin's main areas of attack. Lu Ning spat out a mouthful of blood onto Onwin's leg. He clenched his teeth with an unyielding and fearless fear of death. Even if his ribs on his back were cracked, he didn't let go. He hugged Onwin and chose to die together with Onwin. Even if he had to die, he would drag Onwin. He definitely couldn't let Onwin go after Yi Qian. Aside from Onwin, there was also a mysterious professional assassin who rarely showed himself. Now that Lena was on the run, the assassin must be with her. If Onwin was also there, even Yi Jian, who was from the Special Forces, would have a hard time dealing with them. The worst case Onwin, he couldn't let the worst result happen. At least one of them had to return alive. Yi Qian, it's up to you. The cliff was right in front of them. Before they could break free, Onwin attacked Lu Ning even more crazily. Yi Qian, who was running over, saw the two figures fighting at the edge of the cliff. Onwin wouldn't choose to die. It was Lu Ning who chose to die together with Onwin. The figure that was running over pounced over and grabbed Onwin's neck with his elbows. Then he slammed Onwin to the side. Leave it to me. Onwin felt a strong wind coming from behind her. At that moment, due to her professional sensitivity, before the wind even reached her, all the cells in her body tightened, as if she was facing a great enemy. Chapter 4760. But he couldn't resist at all. The moment his neck was strangled and thrown to the side, Onwin was relieved. Onwin was relieved that he didn't have to die with this madman. Yi Qian didn't let Onwin relax for long. The dagger in his left hand stabbed toward Onwin's temple like lightning. Onwin had difficulty breathing with his neck strangled. His waist was dragging Lu Ning, and his hands instinctively tried to resist. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his arm. Something sharp had stabbed his arm, and it was moving toward Ugh. Angwen's pupils suddenly constricted as he struggled with all his might. He kicked Lu Ning, who was still hugging his waist tightly, and waved his bleeding arms, trying to hold Yi Jian behind him. His palms were quite large. Once Yi Qian's head or neck was clamped by him, his fragile throat would be vulnerable. Yi Qian didn't give Onwin a chance to resist. He stabbed the dagger he got in the dungeon deep into Onwin's temple. Crack! Onwin's hard skull couldn't stop the sharp tip of the dagger. Onwin's eyes bulged as the sound of rusty iron scraping the ground came from his throat. The moment Yi Qian lowered his head and pushed the dagger forward, his struggling hands grabbed onto Yi Qian's hair. Before Onwin died, he gave Onwin a final blow. He grabbed onto Yi Qian's hair tightly. The skin on Yi Qian's temple was so tight that it seemed like it was going to break from the skin on his cheeks. Huh! Yi Qian shouted in a low voice. He twisted the dagger in Onwin's temple twice. The struggling Angwen's abdomen suddenly twitched, and a gust of air rushed out from his muscular chest. His bulging eyes gradually lost their luster as his chest stopped moving up and down. Only his face was still as ferocious as before. Lu Ning was still hugging Angwen's waist tightly. He was hugging her mechanically. Yi Jian used the bloody dagger to cut off Angwen's black hair. It took a lot of effort to pry Lu Ning's hands away from Angwen's waist. Cough, 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 cough. Lu Ning, whose hands were trembling, couldn't stop coughing. Every time he coughed, a mouthful of blood came out of his throat. He fell to the ground and smiled bitterly at Yi Qian. Sorry for the trouble. Panting heavily, Yi Jian glanced at Angwen, who was lying beside him. He pressed on the gunshot wound on his shoulder and tried to calm himself down. What are you talking about? I didn't expect it to be Angwen. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have left you alone. Onwin, a famous professional killer by Lena's side. It's hard to kill him. Panting, Yi Jian sat up with his hands on his knees. How are you? Can you still hold on? I can hold on. Lu Ning, who tried to sit up, fell back to the ground and lay down. Even raising his hand was difficult for him. He panted heavily and said, "Please help me. The car is not broken. Let's drive to where Lena got off." His ribs were probably broken, and his internal organs were probably injured. Lena didn't want to tell Yi Qian anything. Yi Qian, who got up, could hear his voice trembling. He walked over and helped Lena up. "Wait for me in the car. I'll take care of Lena." "No way." Lena's legs were still fine. He swallowed the blood in his throat and said, "There's another professional killer by Lena's side besides Onwin. He's as good as Onwin. I'll go with you." Chapter 4761. Before Lu Ning could finish his sentence, Yi Jian suddenly pressed on his back. Caught off guard, he sucked in a breath of cold air from the pain. "Broken ribs, it's not suitable for climbing. Wait for me in the car." Yi Qian smiled and retracted his hand. "I'll try to avoid the people around Lena. After dealing with Lena, I'll immediately retreat." Then he went to the dead Ong Wen's side. He searched her body several times and took out a black mobile phone from her trouser pocket. It turned out to be a military satellite phone. That's right, the mobile phone signal in the depths of the Golden Triangle Mountain can't be fully covered. If you want to contact at any time, you can't use a normal mobile phone. The military satellite phone seems to be provided by General Min Lai. Since she wants to escape, why would Lena use a military satellite phone that can track her whereabouts at any time? Is she not afraid that General Min Lai will directly send a helicopter into the mountain to kill her? With Lena's cunning, it's impossible that she didn't think of it. Unless Yi Qian moved his wrist and put the mobile phone in his pocket. Then he walked to the other Burmese man who had been killed earlier. He searched, but didn't find a second military satellite phone. Yi Qian, who was pressed for time, didn't delay any longer. He helped Lu Ning and walked to the jeep parked on the side of the road. Unless Lena has to use a military satellite phone, she has to use it for the time being, even if she is afraid of General Min Lai. After helping Lu Ning get in the car, Yi Qian started the car and asked, "Can you still contact Captain Deng? There's something I need to trouble Captain Deng." For personal matters, Yi Qian can only contact Captain Deng during the shore drive. Captain Deng was overjoyed when he received Yi Qian's call. After listening to Yi Qian's request, Captain Deng said with a serious face, "Okay, as long as you can reach the border tomorrow night, I will arrange for you to return to Xiang City that night. But you have to be prepared. You can't get hurt. If you get hurt, you have to stay in Sherry City for treatment." "Okay." Yi Qian curved his lips. His sweet smile was like a lotus blooming in the morning dew. Lu Ning, who was sitting next to him, slightly closed his eyes and couldn't bear to look. Not hurt. He was already injured. He had been shot in the shoulder and was bandaged with a scarf that he had picked up from somewhere. The scarf was also soaked in blood. Yi Qian's call was quickly relayed to the military. Major General Yang found out that Yi Qian was safe and sound. He was now pursuing his second objective, which was to kill Yi Qian and return to the country. In that instant, Major General Yang's tense heart finally settled down. Tomorrow, when Xia Jinyuan came to ask him when Yi Qian would return, he could directly reply that he would go to Xiang City and wait there. He would see him. Major General Yang, who was asked by Xia Jinyuan every few days, felt that he had developed a phobia of the phone. Every time the landline rang, he had the urge to run away, fearing that it was Xia Jinyuan calling again. Now that he could finally give a definite answer, he was no longer afraid of the phone ringing. Yi Qian returned the phone to Lu Ning. He looked around the car and said in a low voice, "See if there's anything useful in the car. I plan to treat the gunshot wound simply first. Lena is prepared to leave with the car. There should be usable supplies in the car. She's also used to preparing some things for emergency use." Lu Ning took the phone and put it back in his trouser pocket. His heavy gaze locked onto Yi Qian's shoulder wound. "How long can you hold on?" "I can hold on until I return to the country. Don't worry, it just looks scary. The pistol's small caliber bullet doesn't penetrate the flesh. The bullet is stuck in the flesh and didn't hurt the bone. Although it hurts a little, I can endure it." She held the steering wheel with both hands and operated it flexibly. If it weren't for the blood on her body, it would be impossible to tell that she had been shot in the shoulder. She was able to act as if nothing had happened after being shot. She was also someone who was willing to risk her life. Chapter 4762. Lu Ning put down the seat and slowly climbed to the back seat to look for usable supplies. Soon, he had to find bandages for bandaging wounds, painkillers, and unopened iodine for disinfection from the hidden compartment in the middle of the back seat. Lu Ning's expression was extremely complicated when he got these simple medical supplies. Holding the iodine bottle tightly, he sat in the back seat and asked with a dark expression, "Did you know that there were these things in the car from the beginning? The people around Lena all commit murder and arson whenever they go out. It's normal to have these in the car. They haven't even opened the bottle of iodine. It seems that the people who often use this car are quite powerful. The last time she came back from Laos, the car she took had a medical box. If she hadn't seen it before, she wouldn't have asked Lu Ning to look for it. She knew, but she didn't deal with it immediately. Was she afraid that he would see her wound and stop her from chasing Lena? If he found out that she was shot like him before getting in the car, he would definitely stop her or even not let her get in the car. Yi Qian didn't let Lu Ning see her wound. It was a pity that she didn't have a strong painkiller. She simply disinfected the wound and blocked it with sterile gauze. She only asked Lu Ning to help bandage it when she wrapped the bandages and took 2 painkillers. The whole process took less than 3 minutes. It took a total of 6 minutes to bandage the gunshot wound on Lu Ning's arm. Then, Lu Ning saw her take out 2 submachine guns and several magazines from the trunk of the Jeep. Lu Ning's chest swelled with pain. "It's not safe to stay in the car. Take it and find a place to sleep. I'll be back." She handed over the submachine gun. Lu Ning, whose chest was aching, grabbed her wrist and said slowly, word by word, "Xiao Yi, Captain Deng said that you have to ensure your own safety before taking any action. You're not suitable to pursue at all. If you really want to pursue, I'll go with you." Yi Qian looked at the big hand that was holding her tightly and smiled faintly. "Brother Lu, Lena must be killed. This is a mission I have to carry out. You can't stop me. It's been 40 minutes since Lena entered the mountains. I have to take the opportunity to catch up. But you don't know where she escaped to." "No, I know." He took out his phone from his pocket. "I'll know through this." This time, the voice that came out of Yi Qian's mouth became a gentle voice. Lu Ning was so shocked that he loosened his grip. Yi Qian took the opportunity to withdraw his arm. "Brother Lu, wait for me to come back." "Wait." Shocked, Lu Ning stumbled out of the car and handed over a small, short flashlight. "You're still missing this." "Thank you." Yi Qian took the flashlight and waved his hand. He carried the submachine gun and entered the mountain. She really lacked this. With it, she could save on the phone's battery. Inside the mountain, Lena received a call from Onwin. Onwin told her that the 2 people sent by Wu Jinquan had been killed, but he was the only one alive. When Lena learned that Wu Jinquan's men were sent by Wu Jinquan and not General Minlai's men, she didn't venture too deep into the mountains. Now that she knew that her tale had been taken care of, Lena's tense expression eased considerably. She and Lana got out of the car and prepared to leave in a car. She asked Onwin to pick her up in the mountains. Yi Qian, who ended the call, didn't expect Lena to go down the mountain again. Her face was slightly pale, but the corners of her lips curled up slightly. After finding a rock, Yi Qian set up the submachine gun and waited for Lena to walk into the trap. Chapter 4763. Yi Qian didn't intend to force herself. If she could use a weapon to solve a problem, she definitely wouldn't choose to use her fists. Just like when Lena went down the mountain, Yi Qian thought of using a submachine gun to deal with Lena. 10 minutes later, the military satellite phone beside her vibrated. Yi Qian turned her head to look. Lena was calling. She calmly took the phone, then used the flashlight Lu Ning gave her to flash 3 times at the top of a tree. Lena's cold voice came from the phone like a snake's tongue. "Pay attention to your surroundings. We'll be there soon." She said obviously, there was someone around her, but she didn't know who it was. She had seen all of Lena's bodyguards before, and the most loyal one was Onwin. They were inseparable all day long. Those who didn't know would think that they had some sort of relationship, but in reality, there was no relationship at all. They were just loyal to each other. Lu Ning mentioned that Lena had a professional assassin by her side. He rarely showed himself, but would clean up any loose ends that Lena hadn't dealt with properly. He never gave Lena a headache, rarely showed himself. Yi Qian wasn't sure she had seen him before. Professional killers were more difficult to deal with than mercenaries, and they were also good at hiding. The special training they had received was comparable to that of special forces. This kind of people usually didn't show their faces and did everything in secret, so it wasn't easy for others to discover their identities. Usually, the people who discovered them were people who were about to die. Yi Qian turned off the flashlight and quietly hid behind a rock, patiently waiting for Lena to come over. After another 10 minutes, Yi Qian heard the sound of something that sounded like a mountain beast stepping on rotten wood. Bit by bit, she patiently approached. Yi Qian coughed softly. Onwen's coughing sounded exactly the same. Even if one listened carefully, one wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Onwen, a voice came from the 11 o'clock direction. Yi Qian turned on the flashlight again and shone it in that direction. He saw Lena with her head down and her hands parting the branches that were blocking her way. Without pausing for even a second, Yi Qian pulled the trigger. Bang, 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 bang. Bang, bang, bang. They weren't shooting in bursts. Instead, they were shooting in a full, automatic manner. The bullets were densely packed as they shot forward one after another. Lena had said, "we," but in reality, she was the only one in front of Yi Qian. How many people were with her? Who were those people? Yi Qian didn't think too much about it when he learned that Lena had brought people over. Her first target was Lena. Once she dealt with Lena, the mission would end. As for the others, if she saw them, she would naturally deal with them. If she didn't see them, she wouldn't go into the forest to look for them and delay her return home. Dealing with Lena was the most important thing. That was the final chapter of this entire mess. The anti-narcotics police in Sherry City had targeted Lena as their second target and General Minlai as their first target. Now that the Golden Triangle drug lord had died in Lena's village, and Lena was General Minlai's subordinate. Tonight, General Minlai had coincidentally sent people up the mountain to deal with Lena. The three parties had triggered a war. Wu Jinquan had been taken care of by General Minlai's men, and Lena, who had escaped, would naturally have someone tell General Minlai that she had been taken care of by Wu Jinquan's men. Throughout the chaos, China had been a bystander. No one would suspect that China was involved. No one would have thought that the chaos that General Minlai had been working so hard for the next half a year was all because of the anti-narcotics police. As a Burmese warlord, China couldn't do anything to General Minlai, but they could still make him busy. Chapter 4764. Lu Ning, who was hiding in the bushes by the side of the mountain, opened his eyes in shock when he heard the gunshots. He pushed down the long grass that was blocking his vision with his hands and looked up the mountain with his bloodshot eyes. Gunshots were fired, and it was one-sided. Was it Yi Qian who fired? Or was it the people around Lena who fired? Lu Ning, who felt a dull pain in his back, took a bite of the wild grass that tasted bitter. He chewed as he stared at the top of the mountain without blinking. In the mountain, Yi Qian fired, and Lana fired at the same time, cutting off Yi Qian's shots. Both sides exchanged fire. Lu Ning spat out the hard grass that he had chewed until only the tendons were left. He clenched the wild grass on both sides tightly, and his breathing became heavier with each breath. Damn it, nothing must happen to her. If her shoulder was not injured, she would have a great chance of winning against the professional killers around Lena. But she was injured. In a mountain, Lena, who had fallen along the bushes, widened her eyes and stared at the darkness in front of her in disbelief. Ongwen, her voice was low and out of tune, and even breathing was difficult for her. You betrayed me. Before she could finish her sentence, the sound of gunfire once again drowned out her voice. This was Lana's second counterattack. Yi Qian, who was hiding behind a rock, turned his body and fired blindly in the direction of 10 o'clock. The bullets were fired from that direction, so the person who fired was the us that Lena mentioned. There was only one person. Lena only brought him with her when she escaped into the mountain. Did this mean that she had met the other mysterious professional killer around Lena? Amidst the gunshots, Yi Qian heard the sound of something heavy being dragged. Someone was trying to hide with the heavily injured Lena. Yi Qian, who was hiding sideways, dashed out and fired in all directions with the direction of 11 o'clock as the center. The gunshots stopped, and the mountain was silent. The only sound that could be heard was the rustling of the leaves in the wind. Lana dragged Lena to the side of the mountain slope. He wanted to cover at least 3 bloody holes in Lena's body with his hands, but he knew that his efforts were in vain. He could not save Lena at all. He took off his t-shirt, tore it open, and bandaged Lena's leg that had been shot twice. Bang, 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 bang. The bullets in front of her seemed to slice through the top of her head, splashing the withered leaves above her into the air. A few withered leaves even landed directly on Lena's body. Rana, who was sweating profusely, didn't stop bandaging. He's not on one now. It should be someone close to the general. Sound. Lena knew that she did not have much time left to live. Her hands that were stained with her own blood gripped the corner of Lana's shirt tightly. Her slightly tanned hands, which were not well maintained, clenched tightly, as if that was the only way she could survive. She wanted to ask why it wasn't Onwin. Their voices were exactly the same. Rana could not answer because he did not know either. It was Onwin's voice, but he was sure it wasn't her. If it was not Onwin, how could he explain the voice? Kill them, kill them. Lena, who was bleeding from her mouth, ordered with a ferocious expression. Kill them all. Kill them all. I'll be waiting. Wait for me. She didn't want to die. She didn't want to die. She wanted to wait for the person who wanted to kill her to die first. She was waiting. Rana took out the pistol that was pinned to Lena's waist. Hold this and kill them. Lena was shot 3 times, but none of them were fatal. The moment Yi Qian's flashlight suddenly shone on her, the cunning Lena suddenly felt a great shock and subconsciously bent over. Chapter 4765. On the other hand, Yi Qian was wary of the other professional killer beside her. When he realized that Lena was alone, he immediately chose to shoot blindly. This allowed Lena to survive for the time being. She was still alive for the time being. She had been shot in the abdomen and 2 in the leg. If she wasn't immediately rescued, she wouldn't be able to survive the night. Yi Qian, who had followed the sound of clothes tearing, had already left her original shooting spot. She didn't want to continue fighting, but she first needed to confirm whether Lena was still alive. Was the sound of clothes tearing to stop Lena's bleeding? Then, she couldn't leave immediately. Lana wanted to lure away Yi Qian, who was chasing after him, but he had failed twice. He also didn't have any submachine gun bullets left, so Lana chose to fight. After giving up on shooting, he bent his body and approached Yi Qian step by step. He was a professional killer, and Yi Qian was a professional soldier. If the two of them met in a hand-to-hand fight, it would definitely be a bloody battle to the death. So, Yi Qian didn't want to fight at all. She had a gun and 2 reloaded magazines. Why would she choose the worst way to fight? The gunshots in front of her stopped, but Yi Qian dashed out. As she approached the slope of the mountain, she continued to shoot. Lana had no choice but to jump away from her suppressive shots. The movement he made undoubtedly told Yi Qian where he was right now. Lana was completely being chased by Yi Qian, and even his breathing was disordered. Difficult to deal with. He had encountered a very difficult person. The other party knew about him, but he didn't know about the other party. Lana, whose eyes were as gloomy as water, closed his eyes slightly. He pulled out the scimitar that the Kachin clan always carried with them. He was going to gamble. He jumped out of his hiding spot again. Yi Qian, who had heard the movement, fired again. At the same time, a sharp scimitar pierced through the bullets and flew straight in Yi Qian's direction. It didn't hit a vital point. It only needed to stab into any part of the opponent's body. The scimitar flew straight at him. Yi Qian only heard a whooshing sound in the air, as well as the sound of leaves being cut by something. He instinctively leaned to the side. The next second, he heard the sound of something cutting into a tree with a bang. The scimitar that had flown over and pierced into the tree. Although the knife was fast enough, it could not be faster than a bullet. With a cold expression, Yi Qian emptied the last few rounds of his submachine gun. When he turned around and hid behind a tree, he had already finished replacing the old and new magazines. Yi Qian, who was used to fighting in the dark, had extremely sharp senses. She heard the faint but persistent breathing coming from not far away and smelled the strong stench of blood in the mountain breeze. The professional assassin beside Lena had been shot. It wasn't that the other party wasn't strong, but that they didn't think that Angwin was fake, and they had taken the initiative. Lana covered the area below his ribs where he had been shot. His expressionless face revealed a pained expression. This time, he was probably going to die. There were still a few bullets left in the submachine gun. He had wanted to save them for a last stand, but now it was a problem. Gasping for breath, Yi Qian moved closer to Lena, who was holding her breath. Lena, who didn't even have the strength to hold the pistol, heard very light footsteps. She leaned against the tree, a strange smile on her face, and used the last of her strength to raise the loaded pistol. Go to hell. With a twisted face, she gritted her bloody teeth and fired at the front. You haven't gone to hell yet. So how can I go to hell? A slightly cold voice floated over. Lena's pupils suddenly contracted. Her hand holding the gun was tightened, and she was forced to shoot towards the top of the mountain. The piles of bones in the cave behind the mountain are waiting for you to accompany them. I haven't sent you there myself, so how can I go to hell? The voice was bone-chilling, with a sharpness that pierced into the soul. Lena spat out 2 words. It's you. It's you. The girl who was kidnapped from China. Chapter 4766. Lena panicked. She used to be the ruler of these human goods. If she wanted them to live, they could live. If she wanted them to die, they had to die. She had the final say in the entire process. She had the final say in the entire village. She had already arranged everything that happened tonight. She had the final say in who could leave and who had to stay. No one dared to question her, and everyone obediently followed her orders. However, in just a few hours, the entire world seemed to have been turned upside down. In the past, a human good who had been wronged by her, who she could beat and scold whenever she wanted, was actually standing in front of her and trying to take her life. Ha ha ha! Lena laughed. Every time she laughed, blood gushed out from her wounds. The 3 gunshot wounds reminded her of the fact that they were all caused by this human good who had once lived because of her. You are not Wu Jinquan's people. Speak. Who? Who sent you? Sent you to my side. After laughing, Lena's breathing became much weaker. She held on to her last breath and used all her strength to move her hands toward her waist. Come closer. Come closer. Tell me who are you? Lena, who had her Kachin clan saber by her waist, had already touched the hilt of the saber. Her usually charming voice was now like a piece of torn cloth, rustling in the wind. It was devoid of life. Yi Qian slowly bent down and moved his hands together. He accurately and ruthlessly pressed down on Lena's unruly right hand. Of course I'm Brother Kuin's people. Otherwise, how would Brother Kuin know that you're the general's people? You think Brother Kuin didn't suspect anything? No, Brother Kuin suspected you a long time ago. He just didn't have any evidence. That time in Laos, you killed 30 of Brother Kuin's subordinates. The evidence was sent to Brother Kuin's hands. Brother Kuin's people. Lena, whose hands were pressed down so tightly that she couldn't move, had a twisted expression on her face like an evil witch. And in the cave behind the mountain, Brother Kuin's people. Can you speak? Who are you lying to? I'm not lying to anyone but you. Yi Qian smiled, but his eyes were still cold. I'm just lying to you. He let go of Lena's right hand and touched her waist. He felt something hard. Come closer. It's the same if I tell you. I'm someone sent by Brother Kuin. She pulled out the knife from her waist. The sharp tip of the knife moved and stopped at Lena's injured leg. You want to stab me with this knife? I've been by your side for nearly 5 months. Do you think I don't know anything about you? I'll tell you closer so that you can stab me with this knife. In my opinion, it's better to stick it into your body. In the darkness, in the intricate growth of the shrubs, the branches and leaves were like monsters baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, trying to drag Lena, who was screaming in pain, in a hell bit by bit. So many girls died in your hands. So many bones in the mountain behind the mountain are all evidence of your murder. Even if I stab you thousands of times with this knife, it won't be enough to appease the hatred of those innocent lives. Lena was in so much pain that her neck straightened. She was in so much pain that her breath was stuck in her throat. She was in so much pain that Lana, who was bandaging himself in the dark to stop the bleeding, tightened his grip on the submachine gun that only had 3 bullets left. He encountered a strong opponent that he had to deal with carefully and not be careless. He had to seize the opportunity to kill a strong opponent. Chapter 4767. The knife in her thigh slowly twisted, first clockwise, then counterclockwise. Yi Qian, who was holding the knife, listened to Lena's screams that were stuck in her throat. His eyes were cold. It hurts, right? I know it hurts. So many girls have died at your hands. Just suffer a little more. He exerted strength in his wrist, and the twisted knife pierced through Lena's thigh. The sharp tip of the knife reached the blood-stained ground covered with a thick layer of fallen leaves. Kill me. Kill me. B asterisk TCH. Kill me. It was too painful. It was so painful that Lena's pupils dilated. No matter how unwilling she was, she didn't want to live in such pain. Her breath was stuck in her throat, and she was going to die of 1,000 cuts. She hated it so much. She hated that she didn't see through people and was bitten in the end. She hated it. She hated it so much. Lana, kill her. Kill this B asterisk TCH quickly. Lena, whose limbs were twitching, moved her lips. Her eyes, which had lost much of their luster, were once again filled with ferocity and hatred. Kill her. Lana, kill her quickly. Yi Qian originally only wanted to fight a quick battle. However, when he mentioned the cave full of bones in the back of the mountain, he couldn't resist the urge to use violence against violence. He couldn't resist the urge to torture Lena and let her have a taste of the pain of having her flesh cut open. Of course I'll kill you. My mission is to kill you. Yi Qian, who was speaking coldly, didn't pay full attention to Lena. She was alert and kept an eye on her surroundings. The professional assassin who was supposed to be guarding Lena didn't leave. Instead, he hid and waited for an opportunity to shoot. Why was Lena talking so much before she died? Apart from wanting to know who she was also using herself as bait. If she succeeded, she could leave this place alive. If she didn't, she would die with her. And your people definitely can't kill me. So what if you're using yourself as bait? I can kill you, but you can't kill me. The hand holding the knife plunged deeper. Lena, who was almost out of breath, was so angry at Yi Qian's words that blood spurted out of her mouth. B asterisk TCH. B asterisk TCH. She actually knew what she and Lana wanted to do. This damn bitch. The strange sounds coming from his throat became more and more frequent, and Yi Qian revealed a cold smile on his face. The Kachin people's sabers were similar to watermelon knives, except that they were slightly curved. They were all handmade and were so sharp that they could even kill a cow or a tiger, let alone kill a person. Yi Qian stabbed Lena's leg with all his might, and only pulled the knife out slowly when it was about 4 centimeters deep. At this time, Lena was already in so much pain that her limbs were spasming, and blood was flowing out of her mouth, one mouthful after another. Her pair of eyes, which had been smiling all day, were filled with viciousness, were glaring. She was unwilling. She was really unwilling. She did not die in the hands of Wu Jinquan or the general. She thought that she would be able to escape tonight. Next, she would hide abroad for a while and wait for the news to die down before contacting the people in the country. She had arranged all her escape routes and was only waiting for herself to finish. In the end, In the end, Lena's eyes widened unwillingly. She let out a final, heart-chilling AOO sound from her throat. She actually died at the hands of a human good that she could have dealt with just a lift of her hand. How could she die in the hands of a human? How could this be? Who are you? Who? 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 She wanted to know who killed her. She wanted to know who this human good who killed her was. Only then would the unwillingness in her heart fade a little. Chapter 4768. A weak voice came from the top of the slope. Yi Qian, who had been hiding behind Lena, pulled out a long knife and pressed it against Lena's blood-stained neck. You've done so many bad things that even 100 deaths won't be enough to appease your hatred. Who am I? Don't you know best? The long knife was pulled out quickly, and a sharp blade cut across Lena's neck. Lena didn't get a quick death until she died. She didn't know who killed her. The Burmese drug dealer Lena, who the Chinese anti-narcotics police had no clue about and didn't even know of her existence, but who had caused the Chinese anti-narcotics police to investigate day and night for more than half a year, fell silently in the vast mountains of the Golden Triangle. Lena, who was lying in a pool of blood, was just one of the many drug dealers in the Golden Triangle. She didn't even have the right to be called a drug lord. If it weren't for General Min Lai, she wouldn't even have the right to know Wu Jinquan. Yi Qian, who had avoided the bullets in front of him, lay prone in the uneven bushes filled with the smell of rotten leaves. He fired continuously in the direction of the bullets. She still had magazine, including the one she was using now. She had at least 40 bullets left. Her opponent was shooting single bullets. She didn't have many bullets left. Yi Qian was very calm, but he didn't let his guard down. Against a professional killer with a gun, even if the other party didn't have a gun, he couldn't let his guard down. There were thousands of ways to kill a person without a gun. She had to be on guard against the enemy hiding in the dark. With her shoulder injured, she wasn't suitable for close combat. Once the enemy got close to her, it was unknown who would live and who would die. But now, at least she had a good chance of winning. Yi Qian didn't want to fight in close combat, but this was the only chance for Lana to leave alive. This Burmese man, who was born and raised in the mountains, was getting closer to Yi Qian every time he fired. When all 3 bullets were fired, he was very close to Yi Qian. Large leaves whipped towards Yi Qian, and the submachine gun in his hand was hit hard by the leaves. Lana, who was hiding behind the leaves, was like a giant beast, pouncing towards Yi Qian with murderous intent. This was a professional killer, not a mercenary. Yi Qian, who was sent flying, crashed into a tree and landed heavily on the ground. He felt a sharp pain in his chest, as if all his organs had been displaced. Without giving Yi Qian any time to catch his breath, Lana charged at him again. His ferocious attack, his steel-like body smashing straight at Yi Qian. Yi Qian raised his leg to kick, but he actually felt a dull pain in his leg bone. Trees, shrubs, and the slope of the mountain trembled. The sound that came out was like 2 fierce tigers pouncing on each other. Lu Ning, who heard the commotion, could no longer wait. He gritted his teeth and picked up the submachine gun that Yi Qian had given him. Without hesitation, he rushed into the mountain. That was the sound of fighting. The professional assassin by Lena's side was already used to killing in the jungle. Xiao Yi was injured, so he had to go over and help her. The trees, shrubs, and rocks on the mountain cut into his skin like crazy. There were even branches left behind from the chopped shrubs. The sharp branches pierced into his flesh with a screech. Yi Qian, whose eyes were red, blocked the hands that were trying to strangle him. He bent his leg and kicked hard at the opponent's crotch. Once, twice, thrice. He had clearly kicked the most painful part of the man, but the man was like a diamond shield protecting his body. His arms pressed down with the same force, completely unaffected. The difference in strength was too great. Yi Qian, who couldn't block with brute force, suddenly let go of his hand and stabbed at Lana's eyes. Even though it was dark in the mountain, he could still see the murderous glint in his eyes. Chapter 4769. Poochie, his index finger stabbed into Lana's left eye like a knife. Yi Qian could even feel his finger digging into the smooth, wet eyeball. This time, Lana was finally in pain. It was so painful that he made a sound from his throat. He raised one of his hands that was wrapped around Yi Qian's neck and tried to break Yi Qian's hand that was digging out his eyeballs. Yi Qian bent down again and kicked Lana's crotch. He raised his head and hit Lana's nose with his head. "You're asking for it." There was a rustling sound that sounded like poison slithering through sand. Yi Qian knew who it was. Driver Lana. He did not expect the other mysterious professional assassin by Lena's side to be Driver Lana. Yi Jin took advantage of the fact that she had hit Lana twice in a row, causing his strength to stagnate. She finally managed to get away from him. Similarly, she did not give Lana a chance to catch his breath. She grabbed a stone that she had casually grabbed and threw it at Lana's face. Lana, who was hit twice in a row, roared. His right eye was completely blinded by Yi Qian's finger. If his reaction had been 3 seconds slower, his eyeball would have been gouged out by Yi Qian. Yi Qian, whose back was bloody from the tree thorns, did not have the chance to throw the stone at Lana's face before he was kicked in the chest. Lana's swift and violent movements had the strength of a beast, and the kick landed right on his chest. Puffed! This kick almost dislocated Yi Qian's organs. His chest felt like it had been hit by a heavy hammer. While he tasted blood in his throat, he was sent flying and fell hard. Yi Qian's chest was hit by a bumpy stone again. She was hit so hard that her vision turned black. She suppressed the taste in her throat, and a mouthful of blood rushed into her mouth unexpectedly. His mouth was full of blood. Yi Qian stood up. Amidst the swaying leaves on the mountain, Yi Qian also pounced on Lana. His fist was aimed at Lana's temple. The force of his punch was very strong. It was all the killer moves of the Snowfield Brigade. Blood kept gushing out from the muzzle of the gun on his shoulder. The wound caused by the tree thorns seemed to have been injected with painkillers. He attacked fiercely as if he did not feel the pain at all. A Special Forces soldier who had walked out of the elite Special Forces would never admit defeat. Lana, who had been blinded in one of his eyes, endured the intense pain and dodged. If there was light at this moment, he would definitely have nightmares in the middle of the night because of Lana's bloody face and ferocious expression. He covered his injured right eye as he was knocked into the tree trunk. His voice was fierce as he said, through gritted teeth, "You are not one of Wu Jinquan's men. You are sent by the Chinese side. Narcotics police? Border defense police?" Yi Qian, whose murderous intent had been completely ignited, spat out a mouthful of blood from Lana's punch. His hands trembled as he touched his back. When his fingers touched a long, hard object, Yi Qian's expression turned grim. He grabbed the tree that had pierced his back. Yi Qian pursed his lips, and a tree branch that was about 6 centimeters long and 3 centimeters, stained with blood, twitched violently. He threw the blood-stained branch aside and faced Lana's ferocious attack. At a time like this, the ferocity of the two had been completely aroused. If they wanted to live, the other party had to die. Bang, walla, bang. In the wild swaying leaves in the mountains, two figures with different physiques fought fiercely. As a female soldier, Yi Qian's muscles and bones were all beaten until they made bang-bang sounds, but she did not let Lana gain much of an advantage. She also beat Lana until all the bones in his body made clack-clack sounds. "Who is the one who wants to die? Who wants to die?" She shouted in Burmese and then used her elbow to hit Lana's chin. Lana's face was deformed, and several of his teeth were broken by Yi Qian. At this moment, Yi Qian was no different from a beast. Chapter 4770. Her fists rained down on Lana's face and chest. When she threw out another punch, her wrist was grabbed by Lana. She heard him shout, "You're a Chinese Special Forces soldier." "Wrong. I'm Brother Cohen's man." Yi Qian, who answered fiercely, saw that her wrist was about to be broken by Lana. Suddenly, she jumped onto Lana in a very strange position. It was impossible to tell what she did. She leaned on Lana's shoulder like a monkey, then used her legs to clamp Lana's neck. Her waist was bent at an unbelievable angle. She shouted fiercely and used her legs to clamp Lana down. She used all her strength to clamp Lana's neck and used the strength of her legs to break Lana's neck. Lana, who had a murderous look in his eyes, clawed at Yi Qian's legs with both hands. His hands were like steel bars as he clawed at Yi Qian's legs until they were bloody. Lana, who had walked the line between life and death for many years, knew that he was in a predicament. If he did not get out, his neck would really be broken. Yi Qian's legs were pulled open by him bit by bit. The bloodied Yi Qian did not give him a chance to escape. She twisted with all her might. Even when the flesh on her calf was torn off by Lana's fingers, she did not cry out in pain and let go. Her moves were completely different from Lu Ning's. Lu Ning mainly focused on defense, while Yi Qian was full of killing moves. Every move was fatal. Yi Qian, who had clawed at her calf until it was a bloody mess, gritted her teeth and grabbed with her free hands. She needed a fulcrum that could allow her to twist her legs. Her hands grabbed the root of the growing shrub. After a violent shake, Yi Qian's entire body suddenly spun, and an extremely crisp crack was heard. The thin branches and leaves of the shrub were still swaying, and countless leaves fell. She could still hear the rustling of the leaves, but it felt like the mountain was extremely quiet, so quiet that she could even hear low murmurs. "That's right, I'm a Chinese Special Forces soldier." A low voice was heard, telling Lana, whose head was twisted at a strange angle. "Fight bravely, not afraid of sacrifice. Protect the socialist motherland, protect the peaceful labor of the people, and never betray the motherland under any circumstances. I will definitely abide by the oath and will never go back on it." This was her belief. This was her perseverance. He would not regret it even if he died 100 times. Lu Ning, who had climbed up the mountain with difficulty, heard the oath on the day he joined the army. It was different from the oath they took when they joined the police, but the meaning was the same. Yi Qian raised his head and looked in the direction of the rustling tree branches. He used his hands to pry open his legs, which were too stiff to listen to his brain, and said in a cold voice, "The second target has been dealt with, Lena." Lu Ning stopped and gave a military salute to the female soldier who was speaking in front of him. Police officer Lu Ning from the narcotics department of Cheli City. Got it. It was easy to go up the mountain, but difficult to go down, not to mention that both of them were injured. Yi Qian did not let Lu Ning help him up. Instead, he supported himself against a tree and slowly got up. His legs were trembling violently, and his knees were so weak that they could not support his entire weight. He was completely relying on his tenacious willpower to support himself. "Mission complete, we can return home." Every word carried a bloody and clear sound in the mountain breeze. It was relaxed, calm, and so fearless. Lu Ning, whose eyes were wet, gently patted the young female soldier's shoulder. "Okay, let's return home." He was injured and covered in blood. He walked from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain until he was completely exhausted. Who knew how many layers of cold sweat had appeared on his body? The car parked by the side of the road started up, and the bright headlights were like sharp swords that split the darkness. They drove bravely and fearlessly into the distance. Far away was their hometown, far away was their family, far away was their home. Chapter 4771. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Xia Jinyuan, who never smoked, lit one cigarette after another and sat alone on the training ground. There were at least 20 cigarette butts by his feet. He didn't smoke much. He just put it to his mouth and lit it, then held it in his hand and let the cigarette burn out. G3, who was invited out by the sentinel, watched for at least half an hour. The captain of the Snowfield Brigade, Lieutenant Colonel Xia, didn't even notice. It was only when Xia Jinyuan walked up to him that he noticed. The red cigarette between his fingers flickered a few times. He threw it into the training ground and put it out with the tip of his shoe. Xia Jinyuan looked up. "Why aren't you asleep yet? Don't you plan to exercise tomorrow?" His voice was so hoarse that it shocked him. G3 walked closer and sniffed. "Why do you smell like shampoo? You didn't drink alcohol and change to shampoo? Get lost." Xia Jinyuan lifted his foot and kicked him. You're disturbing my peace. G3 sat down and smelled the shampoo smell even stronger. He stared at Xia Jinyuan's hair, which was unruly even with a crew cut. He couldn't help but laugh. Don't tell me you came out halfway through washing your hair. G3 was right. Xia Jinyuan's nerves stiffened. He looked up and touched his hair that was a little prickly. I washed it. I think I washed it. Wash my ass. Your hair smells like shampoo. G3 laughed until the corners of his mouth twitched. He even touched Xia Jinyuan's hair. It's still sticky. Go back and water it. It'll foam up. You probably didn't wash it. Xia Jinyuan touched his hair that was indeed sticky. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly. That smile made G3's heart tighten. At first, I really thought you were asleep. The sentinel walked around and realized it was you. He didn't dare to approach. He walked around again, and you were still there. He was worried and walked around a third time to find me. He was afraid that you would take things too hard and commit suicide. G3 looked carefully at his captain, who was as firm as a flagpole. He lowered his voice. Why? Are you still thinking about Yi Qian? Aren't we going to her school tomorrow? Now that I've seen her, my lovesickness has been cured. I was just washing my hair when I saw her standing there covered in blood. She was mumbling something under her breath. The amount of blood that was flowing out was scary. After 3 minutes, she was completely drained of blood. Xia Jinyuan, who was washing his hair, suddenly had this image flash through his mind. His heart ached so much that he almost thought he was going to die young. He froze up and even forgot if he had finished washing his hair. This was also the first time he had encountered a situation where he didn't even know what he was doing. G3, who had been called out by the sentinel, was so frightened by the sentinel's anxious appearance that his knees went weak. He thought that their captain was really going to commit suicide and ran all the way over. When he saw this, he was relieved. He didn't disturb them, and even had the sentries circle around this area, standing to the side to accompany them. He didn't dare to come over and disturb him. He was afraid that if he disturbed too much, he would frighten the soldier who always stood straight like a spear and upright like a flagpole in a bending over. Just like that, they accompanied each other until it was late at night. If you go tomorrow, you might be able to see her. How can you not attend the graduation ceremony? G3 didn't know how to comfort him, but he had to say something. How could he just accompany him? Xia Jinyuan smiled faintly. His incomparably handsome face looked as if it had been drenched in yellow lotus juice. Even his eyes were filled with bitterness. I have *King feel that I'm being a little unreasonable. You're right. I look like I'm being ruthless to her, but in reality, I'm being ruthless to her under my nose. Once she leaves my sight and walks out of my range, I'll be scared. Oldine, I'm really *King scared. I'm so scared that I'm scared to death. Chapter 4772. I'm scared G3 so much that his heart trembled. He asked in a trembling voice, Don't tell me you're not going to let her join our team? Hey, don't say that. I didn't think of that just now. Xia Jinyuan laughed so hard that G3 felt like his heart was about to give him a heart attack. He held his breath and retorted, Don't make the decision. It's not up to you. Yes, it's not up to me. So, I'm just thinking about it. Putting aside my identity as a soldier, I'm just thinking about it like an ordinary and selfish man. Tell me, I'm the one who led her on this journey. If I'm scared, who's going to support her in the future? I can't be scared. Even if I'm scared, I have to endure it. I can't let her see that I'm a coward. She's been chasing me wholeheartedly and wants to fight side by side with me. As for me, I keep telling her that I'm just waiting. When I turn around and tell her that I'm *King scared, she'll definitely raise her hand and slap me. So, I have to endure it even if I'm scared. I have to tell her that she's really brave and that special forces soldiers have to be like her. What's there to be afraid of bleeding? Our clothes are thick and can cover the bleeding. After a few days of rest and drinking a few bowls of pork liver soup, it'll make up for it. Oldine, I'm really not afraid of bleeding. I'm just afraid that she'll lose her life. His light voice floated like a bubble that couldn't be poked, blown by the wind or burned by the sun. The slightest movement would cause it to shatter into pieces. G3 felt like his heart was being pierced. He closed his eyes and buried his face in his rough palms. He rubbed his face fiercely and wanted to peel off the layer of old skin on his face. Xia Jinyuan looked down at him. Hearing the rustling sound of his face being rubbed, he nudged G3 with his elbow. "Are you wiping your face with a steel wire ball? Will sister-in-law still acknowledge you when you go back tomorrow? Do you still need someone to comfort you?" G3, whose calluses were so thick that his face looked like a steel wire ball, looked up and glared at Xia Jinyuan, who still had the mood to tease him. "Can't you spit out some ivory? I was sitting down and meditating, but you came over to disturb me. I haven't settled the score with you yet. Go away. Don't comfort me. Which brat is patrolling tonight? Go wash the toilet tomorrow." G3 choked. They couldn't tell if their captain, who couldn't be investigated by ordinary people, was all right. He said that he had something to do. Look at the way he spoke. It was no different from usual. The moment he opened his mouth, he could make people choke. When he said that he was fine, the words scared and bleeding were all abnormal. Why would he be afraid? He had never been afraid before. That wasn't fear. That was the most normal worry a man would have for the woman he loved deeply. It wasn't because he was a soldier that he didn't have the right to worry about his girlfriend. Xia Jinyuan saw that G3's expression kept changing. One moment, he looked like he was constipated, and the next moment, he looked like he had internal injuries. He raised his hand and patted his comrade's shoulder. "I think I probably have some endocrine disorders. I need to get a few doses of Chinese medicine to adjust it. One moment, I feel anxious, and the next moment, I feel sad like Lin Daiyu. When I calm down and think about it again, I feel that nothing is wrong and that I'm just tormenting myself. Whether it's fear, blood, or death, I'll accept it. I'll accept it all. As long as she likes it, I'll accept it. Don't worry, I won't let her join the team. She'll definitely join our team. In the future, when I become her captain, I'd like to see if old Yang still dares to hide it from me." The last sentence was said through gritted teeth, causing Major General Yang, who was in Beijing, to inexplicably shiver. Chapter 4773. G3 also felt that Lieutenant Colonel Xia was probably suffering from endocrine imbalance. He gritted his teeth and said, "You really should have done a month of Chinese medicine. If you continue like this, I will be tossed around by you until I have a problem. But you can't be considered a problem. Your girlfriend disappeared for a few months. As a boyfriend, if you don't worry at all, that would be abnormal. Your situation is normal and can be understood. During the day, you manage the army. At night, you have some time to worry about your girlfriend. It's normal. Young man, don't let your imagination run wild. Tomorrow, when you go to Xiang City, obediently serve Xiaoyi. When you come back in a few days, I guarantee you'll be radiant." When the hustle and bustle of the day and the night fell, Xia Jinyuan, as a man, also shed the strength of the soldier during the day and revealed the most tender side of a man. This tenderness was condensed from flesh and blood. At its core, it was a man's deep love for a woman. He was a soldier and also a man. Naturally, he would be fragile. Therefore, it had nothing to do with being pretentious. As a man, he was worried about his girlfriend's safety. Tossing and turning, he couldn't sleep at night. It was normal. G3 didn't think it was pretentious. He heard a man's deep longing for a woman. "How long do you plan to sit? You have a flight tomorrow. Let's sit for a while. What's there to sit for? It's already past 2 in the morning. Don't worry. Let's wait." "Wait for what?" "Wait for the call. If there's news, it'll only happen in 1 or 2 nights. Are you sure? Get lost. Don't disturb me." In the field, the captain of the Snowfield Brigade, Q King, and G3, who only accepted the temporary position of instructor, swept away the wise and powerful image they had during the day and started a conversation that was worse than a 3-year-old child. At 3 in the morning, Captain Deng, who was sleeping at his desk, received a call again. The entire anti-narcotics brigade was surrounded by a sea of joy. Their hero had returned to the country. "Quick, Helicopter to pick him up. All medical personnel are in place. Quickly arrange it. Quick. In the anti-narcotics brigade, Captain Deng's bell-like voice reached the ears of all the anti-narcotics policemen. At that moment, the entire brigade's office building boiled over. The heroes in the black and white photos on the photo wall that quietly accompanied their comrades seemed to smile. The road ahead was still long. Some people would fall, while others would advance. Those who advanced would fight to protect the peace of the nation. It was 5 minutes past 3 in the morning. Xia Jinyuan, who had been sitting on the field, felt his phone vibrate. G3's eyes widened and his mouth moved silently. Did you really get a letter? It wasn't a real letter. The smile on Xia Jinyuan's face widened, and he looked like a gentleman. In the middle of the night, a sentry from a certain military base silently looked at the captain, who was not sleeping in the middle of the night and was so energetic that he was actually running. He could not help but criticize in his heart. Why are you running in the middle of the night instead of sleeping? Did you hit your head? Major General Yang felt refreshed. After being chased by Xia Jinyuan every day for months, he finally got his revenge in the wee hours of the morning. As for the injury, Yi Qian and Lu Ning did not even mention it to Captain Deng, let alone Major General Yang. After driving out of the mountains and returning to the bustling city, the first thing Yi Qian did was to go to a small pharmacy in Myanmar to get a bunch of medical supplies. It was not a big deal to look for medicine in a small border town covered in blood. The staff of the pharmacy did not even ask anything. They calmly handed over the medicine and received the money. Relying on the medicine they bought, the two seriously injured men made it to the border and found an informant who could send them out of Myanmar. At 5 in the afternoon the next day, the sky was still bright and the sun was still warm. A helicopter took off from the border and flew straight to the Best People's Hospital in Sherry City. The two medical personnel accompanying the helicopter saw the two injured men. Even though they were used to seeing people die, their eyes turned red. Chapter 4774. The medical personnel who came to the rescue were from the Border Armed Police Hospital, an experienced doctor and a nurse with 14 years of experience. Both of them had seen too many gunshot and knife wounds, and it could be said that they could already maintain a straight face. However, when the soldiers of the Border Police Hospital carried the two injured onto the helicopter, they saw that they were tattered beyond recognition. Large patches of brown blood stained their clothes, and then saw the wounds on their bodies. The hands of the doctor and nurse trembled as they opened the medical kit. How badly were they injured? The male soldier had 3 broken ribs. He had a high fever because he had not been treated in time. The bullet had deviated, and there were signs of scratches around the wound. His facial features were so swollen that it was impossible to see his original appearance. There were large abrasions on his hands and feet. The patient was in unbearable pain and suspected to have a spleen injury. This was still considered good. When the female soldier's clothes were cut open, the nurse with 14 years of experience could not bear to look and turned her head slightly. On her back, there was no intact skin. It was full of wounds and dry blood. The white bandage that had been bandaged at the last minute had turned black. When the bandage was slowly untied, the doctor gasped slightly. The female soldier's back had countless punctures and scratches. The deepest wound was 3 to 4 centimeters deep. It was a blunt object that caused the flesh to overturn. The right back of her waist was suspected to have been punctured by tree branches. There were dark brown stains on her flesh that needed to be washed deeply to remove the impurities. She had been shot in the shoulder. The bullet had penetrated deep into her flesh. As she had been shot for too long, the area around the wound was inflamed and swollen. Her jaw was injured violently. There were countless thin, bloody marks on her face. It was suspected to be caused by small, sharp objects such as thorns. Her legs were scratched by someone. 10 bloody finger marks were clearly visible. Some of the skin tissue had been forcefully torn off. Even if the wound healed, it would leave permanent scars of skin tissue depression. 2 broken ribs. There was no pain when she pressed on her abdomen. However, there was a large purple bleeding wound on her chest. It was suspected that she had been hit violently. Her body temperature was high, but her mind was very clear. The doctor looked at the slender fingers that were covered in blood. He sighed and said, "Okay, we won't give you painkillers for the time being. However, you still need them on the operating table later." "Okay, I'll cooperate later. I can't do it now. I'm afraid I'll fall asleep." Yi Qian, who had taken painkillers all the way back, smiled slightly. "Doctor, I'm sorry to put you in a difficult position. I'm not making things difficult for you. In the end, you're the one who will suffer." The doctor in his early 40s sighed. "If you can't bear it, you have to tell me. There's still half an hour before we reach Cheli." Yi Qian and Lu Ning came from a remote place, but they were able to reach the Burmese border as soon as possible. It would take them 40 minutes to get to Sherry City by helicopter. The doctor carefully checked their injuries and requested that they be admitted to the hospital immediately for surgery, but Yi Qian refused. She had to return to Cherry City tonight. Even if she had an operation, she had to complete it in Cherry City. Lu Ning knew the reason and insisted on returning to Cherry City. Thus, after being yelled at by Captain Deng nodded in agreement. It was not easy for Yi Qian to get the chance to go back to Cherry City for the surgery. He was really afraid that after the painkiller injection, his tense nerves would relax, and he would accidentally oversleep and miss his own graduation ceremony. She had to go back to attend the graduation ceremony. This was the agreement between her and Captain Xia. Lu Ning still gave her a painkiller. He was on vacation when he returned to Cherry City. Even if he slept until dawn, he wouldn't make any mistakes. However, Lu Ning was a righteous man. He didn't sleep and stayed with Yi Jian. Chapter 4775. Seeing the two like this, the doctors and nurses silently cleaned and disinfected the shallow flesh wounds for the two. They waited at the border for a full 14 hours. In other words, the two endured the severe pain and drove the vehicle for 14 hours. The two didn't faint during the whole process and relied on their willpower to support themselves. If it was an ordinary person, not to mention a lot, fainting 3 to 5 times was possible. The two were on in 4 in the helicopter. At 6:15 in the evening, they arrived at the People's Hospital in Cherry City. It was specially used for emergency operations to provide a landing pad for helicopters. Dressed in casual clothes, Captain Deng and 30 anti-narcotics policemen welcomed their heroes back. When they saw the two people coming down from the helicopter, they saw the two people push away the medical staff and accompanying border police. Even if they were seriously injured, they still walked over with their backs straight. At that moment, everyone present was moved. Time was difficult, and they used their own blood to carve an epic that belonged to them. "Salute!" Captain Deng shouted and gave a solemn military salute to the returning heroes. "Thank you for doing your best to protect the country's peace." In response, the two people also gave a solemn military salute. "Thank you for guarding the rear," which allowed them to return today. On the way to the operating room, Yi Qian used her willpower to support the last of her consciousness and said to Captain Deng, "Captain Deng, don't forget our agreement." "Rest assured, I didn't forget." Captain Deng held Yi Qian tightly and solemnly replied, "I will definitely send you back to school to attend the graduation ceremony." "Good, thank you, Captain Deng." Yi Qian, who was lying on the hospital bed, waved her hand and gently closed her eyes with a smile. Her face was relaxed. She could return to Xiang City very soon. "Captain Xia, are you waiting for me to come back?" "You must be waiting for her to come back." How could the two of them go back on their word when they had already made an agreement? Unless there was a mission at hand, and they had no choice but to violate it. When they arrived at the operating room, Yi Qian chose local anesthesia. Local anesthesia was limited. She said that she still had a very important matter to deal with. General anesthesia would make her brain unable to stay awake, and she would make mistakes. The surgeon gave this uncooperative female soldier a slight headache. But what else could they do? They cooperated. In the operating room, it was always the patient cooperating with the doctor. Today, it was the doctor cooperating with the patient. The effect of local anesthesia was limited. The doctor chose to remove the bullet and suture the wound first. Then he cleaned and sutured the two deep puncture wounds on the back. At the same time, the wounds on both legs were treated simultaneously. From 6:20 p.m. to around 10 p.m., all of Yi Qian's injuries were treated. Her fractured ribs were bandaged and fixed. When Captain Deng saw Yi Qian being wheeled out of the operating room, he was alarmed by her sweaty hair. The doctor helplessly told Captain Deng what had happened before the operation. Captain Deng held back his reprimand and used the word nonsense to express his distress. Far away in Xiang City, Xia Jinyuan walked past his former alma mater. Now it was also Yi Qian's alma mater. Step by step, he slowly walked. In front of him were scrolls of Yi Qian shuttling through the campus. Xiaoye's favorite place is the library. I don't know where she gets so much energy from. Every time she finishes training, the other students are so tired that they're lying on the ground, but she's still energetic enough to study in the library. I've been to the library 10 times, and I've seen her 10 times. In the future, she will become your soldier. You can cherish her and cultivate her well. You can't harm her because of personal matters. The department head, who was taking a stroll, seemed to have guessed the inner thoughts of his favorite student. His words had a hidden meaning, but he didn't point it out. People who listened knew what he was talking about. Several times, he came to find Yi Qian. The department head clearly saw it all in his heart, but he didn't point it out. Chapter 4776. One was in the army, the other was in the military academy. The two were so busy that they didn't see each other once a year. Of course, excluding training during the holidays. In short, the two met at most twice a year in the school. They were both ambitious young people who knew the rules and were not afraid of them getting into trouble. As the department head, even if he saw through a little, there was no need to point it out. Now that this year's top student, Xiao Yi, was about to graduate, as the department head, he still had the responsibility to remind her a few words, lest the two young people be together for a long time and lose their sense of propriety. Xia Jinyuan could naturally hear the hidden meaning in the department head's words. Junyin slightly smiled. You can rest assured. She and I both know what to do. We won't mess around and won't make a mistake. That's good, that's good. I still believe what you said. The department head couldn't help but smile and nod. Then he looked at the fourth-year students passing by the campus from time to time. His smile slightly faded. Tomorrow at the graduation ceremony, she will speak as the representative of the outstanding students. Although she is not there, her position is still reserved. I hope, as you said, she will definitely rush back. She will come back. She will definitely attend the graduation ceremony on time. Xia Jinyuan answered the department head with certainty, letting the department head eat a pill of reassurance. The night was getting deeper and deeper. The stars in the sky were so bright that nebulas surged. The Milky Way was like a silk, too beautiful to behold. A civil aircraft that rose to an altitude of more than 8,000 meters flew over the Milky Way. It flew over beautiful mountains and rivers, flying from Yun Province to Xiang City. At 2 o'clock in the morning, the plane landed on time. While the passengers waited patiently, a special passenger in a wheelchair was pushed by an anti-narcotics policeman, and a medical staff left in advance. For this special treatment, Yi Qian secretly made up her mind that there would never be a second time. This time, no matter how much she insisted, Captain Deng and the anti-narcotics police refused to let go. They must have sent an anti-narcotics policeman and a medical staff to accompany her. In the end, even the leader came forward and persuaded Yi Qian in every way possible. What really made Yi Qian agree was Major General Yang's call. As a result, Yi Qian was accompanied by a narcotics officer and a paramedic. Although the flight crew did not know what had happened, it did not stop them from admiring Yi Qian as he left in a wheelchair. The airport at 2 o'clock in the morning was very, very quiet. There were only 2s and 3s of people at the connecting gates. Although Yi Qian and the other two were all wearing casual clothes, they were still quite eye-catching when they came out in a wheelchair. The Yun Province Anti-Narcotics Police contacted Xiang City Airport in advance. and Yi Qian came out through a special passage. Yi Qian, whose back was injured and his ribs were broken, only rested for a short while on the plane. He was injured in many places, so he rested with his eyes closed the entire time. Logically speaking, he should be very tired, but he was full of energy and didn't feel sleepy at all. The medical staff in the same field teased him. He's still young after all. Yi Qian pursed his lips and smiled. She did not care about her youth because there was someone hidden in her heart. He was the source of her energy. Before they came out of the passage, Yi Qian's gaze was already subconsciously searching for a figure that she could recognize, even if it was a hazy back. The narcotics officer who found her gaze searching asked with a smile, "What are you looking for?" "I'm looking for a person, a very, very important person." Her voice gradually lowered. The very, very important person in her heart had already appeared, tall and straight, towering like a mountain. With a smile on his face, he was striding towards her. "A very, very important person. I found him," Yi Qian said in a low voice. Even when the anesthesia had worn off in the middle of the operation, the Special Forces soldier who did not shed a single tear. At this moment, his eyes were glistening with tears. That very, very important person had come. He had come to her side. Good, good. Chapter 4777. I turned my prayer wheel and walked across mountains and rivers just to see you again one day. I went through hardships and broke through cliffs just to see you again one day. Seeing the tall and straight figure striding over, and seeing the gentle smile at the corner of his mouth, Yi Jian stretched out her hands and made a gesture of welcoming and hugging him. Reunion is the most beautiful thing. Hug me, Captain Xia. It was really tiring to walk all the way here. If she didn't have faith in perseverance, she might have collapsed halfway. Her faith was an oath under the flag, and her perseverance was him, a man who was very important to her and loved her very much. Xia Jinyuan walked faster and faster. He lost his composure. He had never lost his composure like this before. He even staggered as he walked. He saw that the girl he loved deeply had returned. Where her gaze found him, her black eyes were filled with tears. Her smile spread from the corners of her mouth and finally stopped in her eyes. There were tears and laughter, and there was a longing for the boat to return to its harbor. He always knew that he was her harbor. "I'm here to pick you up, little fox. I'm here to pick you up, my love." Even the narcotics police officer who was pushing the wheelchair knew that the young man was a soldier, judging from his quick pace, his handsome face, and the military aura he exuded. He was Yi Qian's lover. The two of them looked at each other with burning affection. There was no need to ask to know their relationship. The narcotics police officer bowed slightly and smiled. "I can give up my position. Congratulations, Yi Qian, on returning home safely." Only by waiting and waiting would one be able to return home safely. Yi Qian nodded and said, Yes, she had returned home safely. The narcotics police officer was very perceptive. He smiled at the medical staff and stopped pushing the wheelchair forward. He simply stood there and waited for the young man to come over. Xia Jinyuan walked closer and stared at his lover in front of him without blinking. He saw her face that was much thinner, her body that was so thin that it seemed like it could be blown away by a gust of wind, and the new wounds on her face. His heart ached badly. He knew it. Even an ambulance was sent to pick her up. She definitely wasn't injured, as Major General said. With Little Fox's strength, why would she need a narcotics police officer and a medical staff to accompany her back to Xiang City if she was injured? Why would she need a wheelchair? He bent down and gently greeted his lover with the most tender side of an iron-blooded man. There was no need for the medical staff to remind him. Xia Jinyuan knew that he couldn't hug her tightly. Even though he wanted to hug her tightly, he had to endure. He carefully opened his strong arms and hugged her very gently. "I'm here to pick you up, baby." A kiss of love and pity landed on Yi Jian's temples. Both of them were entangled with each other. Even the air was filled with sweetness. "I'm back, Captain Xia." Yi Qian could only hug Xia Jinyuan back with one hand. His injured shoulder could only be lifted to the same position as Xia Jinyuan's shoulder. It couldn't be lifted any further. The accompanying medical staff wouldn't allow it. I didn't break my promise. This was the second sentence Yi Qian said when they met. Xia Jinyuan's eyes suddenly turned sour, and he almost cried in front of everyone in the hall. Fortunately, he didn't lose his composure. Ma'am, I know. My little baby has always been a man of his word. How could he break his promise? As he spoke, a tender and delicate kiss fell on her hair. So, I've been waiting for you to come back. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.